Chapter 2683. Xian Nu Sect. Ah! A blood-curdling scream reverberated throughout the Dragon Ascension sect's base. Zhang Heng was a disciple of the Rising Dragon sect after all. He even had Zhang Wangu behind him. Wu Yu naturally wouldn't go overboard and kill or cripple Zhang Heng. Therefore, Wu Yu chose a very gentle and vulgar action. He kicked Zhang Heng's weakest spot in front of everyone. "Zhang Heng, you hit me once and I kicked you back. We're even now. If you don't say anything, I'll take it that you've agreed." "Yi Fei, he's agreed. We can go now." Without giving Zhang Heng a chance to speak, Wu Yu had already pulled Yi Fei and quickly walked out. The Rising Dragon sect disciples present also looked at each other. Looking at Zhang Heng, who was clutching his legs in pain and unable to speak, and then looking at Yi Fei and Wu Yu, who were planning to leave, they didn't know what to do. After all, Zhang Heng's strength was obvious to all. Yet, he was defeated by Yi Fei with a single punch. Even if these Rising Dragon sect disciples wanted to stop them, they were powerless. In the end, they could only open up a path for Yi Fei and Wu Yu to pass. Only Zhang Heng's body was bent over, and he clutched the place where he had been kicked. His face was filled with hatred as he glared at Yi Fei and Wu Yu's backs. Wu Yu's kick had been too vulgar, and it made Zhang Heng want to kill him. Chu Ling's face turned red as she spat out a mouthful of blood. So she had also been alarmed by the conflict just now. However, before she could stop it, Wu Yu had already been injured. Luckily, Yi Fei had acted and helped Wu Yu vent his anger. "Chu Ling, I'm very sorry for making things difficult for you." Yi Fei walked to Chu Ling's side apologetically. Wu Yu could tell, and so could Yi Fei. Zhang Wangu should have a very high position in Chu Ling's heart. His action had put Chu Ling in a difficult position. Unexpectedly, Chu Ling didn't get angry. Instead, she rolled her eyes at the two of them and said, "You treat me as a friend. Do you think I don't treat you as a friend? I admit that I used to admire Senior Apprentice Brother Wangu, but after training with you, I finally understand why Master has always disliked Senior Apprentice Brother Wangu." Chu Ling nodded. Suddenly, she and Yi Fei supported Wu Yu on both sides and walked out of the Dragon Rising sect's encampment. After all, the current Dragon Rising sect's encampment was practically Zhang Wangu's territory. It was no longer suitable for them to stay. Moreover, through Zhang Heng's matter, Chu Ling could be said to have finally seen Zhang Wangu's character clearly. She also made the most correct choice, which was to leave this place together with Yi Fei and Wu Yu to find another place to live. Seeing that even the sect master's personal disciple, Chu Ling, had left, many of the Dragon Rising sect's disciples' expressions changed. There were even some who began to ponder whether joining the Heaven Alliance was the right choice or not. Zhang Heng's expression changed even more. Zhang Wangu's goal was to make an example out of him and chase away Yi Fei and Wu Yu. It was also a warning to the other Dragon Rising sect's disciples who refused to submit. But now, not only had Yi Fei and Wu Yu left, even Chu Ling, whom Zhang Wangu favored the most, had left with them. Zhang Heng felt his limbs turn cold. He didn't know what to do. After walking out of the Dragon Rising sect's encampment, Yi Fei looked at the huge ancient Great Void City and asked, "Where should we go now?" Chu Ling looked around, also at a loss. In the end, it was Yi Fei who thought of something and said, "Chu Ling, why don't you go ask where the loose cultivators and small powers are gathered? We don't have a lot of people anyway. We just need to find a quiet stone house and let Wu Yu recover. Then we can wait until the Great Void opens." "Why don't you go ask?" Chu Ling glared at Yi Fei with dissatisfaction. Yi Fei was speechless. Just as he was about to say that he would go, Wu Yu suddenly gave him a look. He frowned and said, "We want to, but we're not women, and we're not fairies like Senior Sister Chu Ling. We don't have an advantage like you when asking for directions." Although she knew that Wu Yu was flattering her, Chu Ling was still overjoyed. She happily ran over and asked for directions. When she saw Yi Fei, she was even more speechless. She felt that Wu Yu was too wretched. However, a beauty asking for directions still had a huge advantage. Chu Ling had only left for a while. When she returned, not only did she ask for directions, she even had a map in her hand. She pointed at the map and said, "I've asked around. The ancient Great Void City is divided into 5 regions. The 9 great sects are in one region, the ancient kingdoms and ancient clans are in another region, and the others like the Frost Alliance and Heaven Alliance are in another region. There are also some small powers in another region. As for the middle region, it's the passage to the Great Void. Where should we go?" "Let's go to the region of the small powers." Yi Fei looked at the distribution of the Frost Alliance and the 9 great sects. In the end, his gaze settled on the corner of the ancient Great Void City. That was the worst location of the ancient Great Void City. The cultivators who stayed there should not be too strong. The 3 of them should be able to deal with them. Understanding the enmity between Yi Fei and the Frost Alliance, Chu Ling and Wu Yu naturally did not object. Instead, they quickly rushed to the corner of the ancient Great Void City. However, this place was not as peaceful as Yi Fei had imagined. On the contrary, because this region was small and there were many people, the number of stone houses that could be used for cultivation was very limited. Along the way, Yi Fei constantly saw many geniuses from small powers fighting over stone houses. There were even some small powers that clashed with each other in order to obtain more stone houses. Moreover, because the sacred domain sects encouraged martial arts, many young geniuses had already started killing each other before the trip to the Great Void had even begun. The more Yi Fei looked, the more puzzled he became. Strange, these small powers do not have many people. The stone houses that they have seized should be enough. Why are they still killing each other? If they had the time, wouldn't it be better to enter the Great Void? I'll go and ask. Chu Ling was in high spirit. This was the first time she had come out to train. Everything was new to her. Moreover, when she saw the little light dragon following behind Chu Ling, it was obvious that it had a noble bloodline. No small force would take the initiative to come find trouble with the Rising Dragon sect's disciples. Chu Ling quickly found out why the battles in this area were so intense. It's the Xian Nu sect. Because the 9 great sects region is not enough and is too crowded, they decided to move their base to this small powers region. The young geniuses of these small powers are all trying to curry favor with the Xian Nu sect. That's why they are fighting each other, hoping to obtain more stone houses and resources. Chu Ling's expression was somewhat ugly as she replied. Hearing this, Wu Yu's eyes suddenly lit up. What? The Xian Nu sect is planning to move their base here? Haha, Yi Fei, the 2 of us can feast our eyes now. You should know that the Xian Nu sect is... But what? Suddenly, Chu Ling's cold voice came from behind. Yi Fei felt a cold chi coming from behind him. He quickly interrupted without batting an eyelid. This Xian Nu sect is also one of the 9 great sects. Chapter 2684. Senior Sister Chu Ling, spare me. The little emerald dragon's words touched Chu Ling's bottom line. She kicked Wu Yu on the spot, causing him to fall to the ground. Wu Yu felt wronged. I didn't say female, it was this dragon who said it. Why am I always the one who gets hurt in the end? Brother Yi, you won't abandon me, right? You will definitely help me seize 8 or 10 stone houses, right? After the wretched guy wailed, he still lay on the ground and looked at Yi Fei with a sad expression. Yi Fei felt his scalp go numb. He asked helplessly, There are only 3 of us. 3 stone houses are enough. What's the use of so many? Didn't you hear what Senior Sister Chu Ling said? The Xian Nu sect is going to move their base here. When the time comes, there will be so many beautiful fairies. They'll definitely need a large number of stone houses. At that time, if we send our stone houses up, we'll have a chance to get to know these fairies. Of course, Brother Yi, you don't have much hope. But I'm different. I'm more handsome than you. I'll definitely win the heart of one of the fairies. As Wu Yu spoke, a knowing smile automatically appeared on his face. The little emerald dragon, who was also lying on the ground, had a wretched smile on its face as it said, "Female, very fierce." Boom! Before the little emerald dragon could finish its words, Chu Ling had already set her eyes on a stone house and was fighting over it with two young divine sovereigns. Due to the existence of the imperial weapon art, the rising dragon sect's disciples were often outnumbered. This time, Chu Ling was no exception. Relying on the little light dragon's holy light dragon sword and the divine dragon ascending dragon fist, Chu Ling wasn't at a disadvantage even when fighting against two young divine sovereigns. In just 3 moves, she had already forced the two young divine sovereigns to retreat pathetically. They had no choice but to give up the stone house to Chu Ling. But Chu Ling didn't have any intention of stopping. After snatching a stone house, the holy light dragon's sword in her hand immediately covered the surrounding several hundred meters with the stone house as the center. From now on, all the stone houses in this area belong to me, Chu Ling. If anyone is unconvinced, they can challenge my 2 followers. Whoever wins will be able to take this area. Chu Ling suddenly smiled at Yi Fei and Wu Yu. Didn't these 2 fellows want to curry favor with the Xiannu sect and see the beauties? Then she would fulfill their wish and let them perform well. It was especially so for Wu Yue. He was still injured and his combat strength was greatly reduced. He was the best target for the surrounding young divine lords to attack. The moment Chu Ling said that, many people looked at Wu Yue with a fighting spirit. But Chu Ling had seized such a large area as soon as she arrived. If she could obtain it, she would definitely leave a deep impression in the hearts of the fairies of the Xian and Yu sect. Immediately, a large group of conceited young divine emperors rushed over. More than half of them came for Wu Yue, while the other half set their sights on Yi Fei. Yi Fei felt that he had been wronged. It was clearly Wu Yu who had been locked up. In the end, because he stood together with Wu Yu, even he was implicated. This was really a case of meeting the wrong person. However, seeing that there were so many people who were willing to compete with each other in order to please the Xiannu sect, Yi Fei felt a sense of pride in his heart. Forget it. There's only one person. Just a mere rumor is enough to make so many geniuses fight to the death. I would like to see how outstanding this girl from the Xiannu sect is. Wu Yu, can you still fight? For the sake of a beauty, I can even lie down and fight. Wu Yu stood up. The little emerald dragon on the ground instantly turned into a green dragon rod and fell into Wu Yu's hands. Then, Yi Fei saw the injured Wu Yu rush toward the young divine lords as if he had been injected with chicken blood. Yi Fei and Chu Ling were speechless. This guy really didn't care about his life in order to see a beauty. Clang! Be it Yi Fei or Chu Ling, they rushed forward together to help Wu Yu share the pressure. However, they didn't notice that Wu Yu had a relieved smile on his face. I knew that as long as I rushed forward, you wouldn't leave me in the lurch. Fairies of the Xiannu sect, I'm coming to love you, boom! Upon hearing Wu Yu's squeal that sounded like a pig being slaughtered, Yi Fei's hand nearly trembled and he struck Wu Yu with his divine ability. However, even though the people who surrounded him were only young god lords from small factions, there was no lack of people with outstanding talent. In order to avoid a prolonged melee, Yi Fei used the sacred dragon fist to its fullest. Instantly, the entire area was filled with a terrifying dragon roar. It made Chu Ling and Wu Yu's hearts tremble. The two of them had cultivated the rising dragon fist before, but they couldn't unleash the same terrifying power as Yi Fei. Wherever Yi Fei's dragon repulse passed, the young divine lords were like rags. Their blood and qi were in turmoil. They couldn't even get close to Yi Fei, let alone attack him. Chu Ling was a little dazed. He looked at his own fists blankly. How can the rising dragon fist be so strong? It's clearly the same fist technique. Why can't I unleash the same power? I can't either. Furthermore, senior sister, I have a faint feeling that what Yi Fei is using is different from the rising dragon fist we learned. Wu Yu's expression turned solemn. Although he was a little perverted, His eyes were very sharp. He could see that Yi Fei's rising dragon fist was different. Same. The appearance of the rising dragon fist also caused a certain amount of confusion among the attacking young divine lords. Many of them decisively withdrew and left, tacitly acknowledging Yi Fei's group's occupation of this area. Even if there were still people who weren't convinced and wanted to continue attacking, they were immediately taken away by the older generation divine lords. Others might not know, but these older generation divine lords knew that those who could learn the Rising Dragon Fist were definitely core disciples of the Rising Dragon sect. Any one of them wasn't someone that small factions like them could afford to offend. Again, he said that there were many other areas that were worth fighting for, so there was no need to gnaw on this hard bone. Thus, after a few dozen breaths of battle, Yi Fei actually discovered that there was no one else in this area besides the three of them. Wu Yu immediately revealed a blissful smile and patted Yi Fei's shoulder. "Haha, this is great. There's hope for us to hook up with a certain fairy." "You two are really perverted." Chu Ling blushed and looked at Yi Fei with contempt. "I didn't expect you to be such a person." Yi Fei couldn't say anything, but even if he explained, Chu Ling wouldn't believe him. He could only let fate take its course. He randomly chose a stone house and cultivated while waiting for the arrival of the Xian new sect's disciples with Wu Yu and Chu Ling. However, the commotion caused by the Xian and Yu sect was even greater than what Yi Fei and the other two had imagined. After they had seized control of the stone houses, the disciples of the 9 major sects had rushed over one after another to fight for the stone houses with the other small forces. All of this was for the chance to meet the female disciples of the Xian and Yu sect. Chapter 2685. At the same time, 9 in the area where the large sects were located, there were too many disciples from the 9 sects participating in this trip to the Great Void. As a sect made up entirely of women, and all of them were young and beautiful, the Xian and Yu sect was naturally under a lot of pressure. Every day, there was an endless stream of people requesting to meet them. However, due to the friendship between the sects, it was not easy for them to refuse. While in addition, there were more people than stone houses in the area where the 9 sects were located. The Xian and Yu sect was the latest to arrive, and their original stone houses were not enough. Therefore, they had the idea of moving their base to the area of the smaller sections. After all, the Xian and Yu sect was superior in the area of the smaller sections. They could decide whether to meet the smaller sects based on their mood. From there, they could cultivate in peace and wait for the start of the trip to the Great Void. Only what the Xian and Yu sect did not expect was that when the news of them entering the area of the smaller sects spread, not only did it cause a scuffle in the area, but many disciples from the 9 sects also entered the area in the name of helping the Xian and Yu sect choose their base. This led to an even more intense fight. "Holy Maiden, what should we do? We have caused chaos even before entering the area of the smaller sections. If we don't handle it well, it will leave a bad impression on the outside world." Xian in the temporary base of the female sect, there was a charming female lord. Her expression was a little ugly. Since the Xian and Yu sect was made up of women, it was naturally not as strong as the other sections. On the contrary, the Xian and Yu sect not only had a good relationship with the 9 sects, but also with other forces, big and small, ancient countries and ancient clans. While moreover, there were often some young talents from the smaller sects who fell in love with the disciples of the Xian and Yu sect. As a result, they chose to marry into the Xian and Yu sect and continue to strengthen the sect. Therefore, the Xian and Yu sect entered the area of the smaller sects to test the talents of the smaller sections. At this time, they certainly did not want too many disciples from the larger sects to fight over it, which would affect the sect's plan. While therefore, when the news came, many female disciples of the Xian and Yu sect turned their eyes to the tall woman in the front. She was the holy maiden of their generation. Although her bloodline was not strong, her sensitivity to heaven and earth was rare in the Xian Nyu sect. Therefore, she was highly valued by the sect. Unfortunately, the holy maiden of the Xian Nyu sect was always wearing a veil bamboo hat, so no one could see her specific appearance. However, in the face of the chaos caused by the Xian Nyu sect, the holy maiden still showed her shrewd and capable side. She quickly made up her mind. Xian Nyu sect, she said. She quickly made up her mind. Xian Nyu sect, I will hold a Tao discussion in the area of the smaller sections. Hearing these words, the eyes of the disciples of the Xian Nyu sect lit up. In this way, not only would they be able to eliminate the negative influence of the Xian Nyu sect, but they would also be able to quell the unnecessary fights in the territories of the smaller factions. They could also use this opportunity to observe the young elites of the smaller factions. The Holy Maiden is wise. We will do it now. The charming old lady nodded her head in admiration. The others bowed and left one after another. They started to carry out the Holy Maiden's order. And the result was surprisingly good. Clang. After learning that as long as they could obtain a stone house, they would have the opportunity to meet the fairy. Many of the young geniuses who had been fighting fiercely just now began to give up. Those who had already obtained multiple stone houses were incomparably depressed. If they had known that one stone house would be enough, they would not have fought so fiercely and wasted so much of their cultivation time. Yes. Yi Fei was also very surprised by the way the Xian Nyu sect handled the situation. He could not help but nod his head secretly. It seems that the Xian Nyu sect is not as simple as their appearance. The holy maiden of the Xian Nyu sect is very skillful. Or rather, she is very business-minded. Even if each of them offered a stone house, when these stone houses were connected, they could form a large sphere of influence. What the Xian Nyu sect needed to pay was only a Tao discussion conference. No. Yi Fei was curious about the holy maiden of the Xian Nyu sect. Chu Ling said excitedly, the Tao discussion of the Xian Nyu sect does not restrict women from participating, right? I also want to participate. Of course. I just went out to ask. There are no restrictions on participating in the Tao discussion. As long as you can give us a stone house in a specific area, it will be fine. We are lucky that the stone houses we got are in this area. Moreover, there are people outside who have proposed to exchange stone houses in other areas with us. Yi Fei, do you think we should exchange? Wu Yu walked in and said awkwardly. Hearing this, Yi Fei's eyes suddenly lit up. He slapped his thigh and said, the holy maiden of the Xian Nyu sect is indeed a business genius. Not only did she settle the disputes of the small forces in one debate, she also created a great business opportunity for us out of thin air. Business opportunity? Where is the business opportunity? Wu Yu and Chu Ling were both confused. They were pure warriors who were wholeheartedly focused on cultivation. How could they keep up with Yi Fei's jumping thoughts? Only with Yi Fei, not only did he have a xiao qiao to raise, but he also had a black tortoise that sneakily ate blackbeaks all day long. His life was very tight. Moreover, under the influence of someone, Yi Fei quickly found a business opportunity to earn a lot of Xian veins from Wu Yu's words. Clang. Before he could explain, Yi Fei had already run out and erected a large wooden sign outside the stone house. There were only 8 words written on it, Stone House for Sale. If you want to buy quickly. These 8 words quickly attracted the attention of many small forces. Almost as soon as Yi Fei erected the wooden sign, some curious Sir Gods from small forces came over with the mentality of trying their luck. They asked, Senior Brother, are you really selling the stone houses here? Of course we are. Didn't the fairies of the Xian Nyu sect say that as long as you offer a stone house, you will be qualified to participate in the Tao discussion? Now it depends on how many Xian veins you can offer. Yi Fei's face revealed the kindest and purest smile. This smile was very infectious. The young Sir God who asked the question only thought for a moment before he stretched out a finger and said, 10,000 Xian veins. What do you think, senior brother? 10,000. Yi Fei was shocked. But then he remembered that these youths who could come to the Great Void were all the strongest prodigies in their respective regions. Their identities and backgrounds were not simple. Naturally, they were also very rich. Yi Fei's expression did not change. He opened 5 fingers and said, fixed price. 50,000, are you buying? I will buy. Although they knew that Yi Fei was extorting them, which of these young Sir Gods who could come to the Great Void did not have a large number of Xian veins? Moreover, in order to meet the fairies of the Xian new sect and seek a marriage, 50,000 Xian veins was still within the range that many people could afford. Chapter 2686. Xian and V Sect's invitation. Chu Ling moved her fingers and was about to calculate carefully when Wu Yu, who had regained his senses, laughed foolishly again. Haha, 50,000 Xian veins for a stone house, 100 houses would be 5 million Xian veins. Senior sister Chu Ling, we're rich, we're going to reach the peak of our lives. What, 5 million Xian veins for these few broken stone houses? Chu Ling was completely dumbfounded. Only the little emerald dragon was calm and collected as it clamored. The peak of a dragon's life is to marry more mothers and have more babies. Wu Yu's silly smile instantly froze. Yi Fei, who had just sold a broken stone house, threw out a few thousand Xian veins on the spot and immediately shut the little emerald dragon's mouth, which made the dragon turtle's heart ache. At the same time, Yi Fei's action of selling the houses caused a huge sensation in this small area. Countless young men who couldn't get the houses but wanted to sneak into the Xian and V sect and hook up with the fairies instantly moved and started to fight for the remaining stone houses in the hands of Yi Fei and the other two. The price rose steadily from 50,000 Xian veins to 100,000 Xian veins, and the supply still couldn't meet the demand. Such a popular scene also made the big and small forces who had extra stone houses in their hands instantly move. They started to imitate Yi Fei and took the opportunity to sell the extra stone houses in their hands. This even led to a change in the Great Void City. In the future, these broken stone houses would all be collected and sold according to the location with different prices. When the news spread to the Xian and V sect, even the holy maiden of the Xian and V sect was a little stunned. There's actually someone who can make use of my Xian and V sect to earn a lot of Xian veins. I didn't think of this method. Holy maiden, it's not that you didn't think of it, but our Xian and V sect is one of the 9 major sections. The people who come and go are either ancient gods or the most outstanding young talents in the heaven realm. We don't need to fight for this small profit at all. The charming female lord smiled apologetically. However, this kind of flattery didn't make the holy maiden feel relieved. On the contrary, it made her very curious about the person who caused all this. Grandma Huang Qiu, that person, what's his name and which force is he from? I don't know, I just heard that they seem to be disciples of the Dragon Rising sect. The leader is Chu Ling, a direct disciple of the Dragon Rising sect. She has 2 followers beside her, one is Wu Yu and the other seems to be surnamed Yi. Speaking of this, Lord Huang Qiu seemed to have thought of something as she looked at the holy maiden with a strange expression. The holy maiden did not notice and only nodded her head slightly. I did not expect that there would be such a woman in the Rising Dragon sect. This Chu Ling's talent in business is not below mine. Granny Huang Qiu, please send her a letter. Tell her that I would like to meet her at the Tao discussion tomorrow. Silently. Wu. At the same time, Yi Fei's actions in the small force area were transmitted to the Heaven Alliance's encampment at the fastest speed. At this moment, Zhang Heng was reporting the information to Zhang Wangu with a face full of hatred. In the end, he said with a gloomy face, Senior Wangu, if it wasn't for Yi Fei, Chu Ling wouldn't have been estranged from you. Where did those disciples of the Dragon Rising sect get the courage to not submit to you? I think that Yi Fei and that despicable person called Wu Yu can't be left alive. Especially when Wu Yu was mentioned, Zhang Heng's eyes became scarlet red. After all, Wu Yu's kick was too vulgar and too shameless. Even now, Zhang Heng still felt a faint pain. If possible, he truly wished that he could swallow Yi Fei and Wu Yu alive to wash away his shame. Sensing the killing intent from Zhang Heng, Zhang Wangu's eyes turned cold. He glanced at him coldly and said, "Zhang Heng, you'd better keep your killing intent. Don't forget that the Dragon Rising sect values character more than talent. We can fight among ourselves, but we can't kill each other. Otherwise, we'll break the sect's taboo." Zhang Heng's face turned ugly. "Senior Wangu, of course, I know the sect's rules. However, I can tolerate this. Are you going to watch Chu Ling get closer to those two? In the end, she might even develop some unspeakable feelings for Yi Fei." "Shut up." Zhang Wangu was finally enraged by Zhang Heng's words. However, even though he was the Dragon Rising sect's eldest senior brother and the strongest genius of this generation, the sect's rules were still there. He couldn't openly violate them. But very quickly, Zhang Wangu seemed to have thought of something and a gloomy expression appeared on his face. He coldly looked at Zhang Heng and said, "You don't need to use Chu Ling to infuriate me. Although due to the rules of the sect, I can't be too harsh on them. But if you want to take revenge, you can borrow the strength of others. Didn't you hear that Yi Fei once ruined Lu Mohan's plans in Chu?" Although the Imperial Sky and Ascending Dragon sect were tight-lipped about the conflict between Yi Fei and Lu Mohan in Chu, even a fool could tell that Yi Fei, with his mediocre talent, had offended a peerless genius like Lu Mohan. What would his end be? Although Lu Mohan hadn't rushed over from the Imperial Sky, there were countless experts in the Frost Alliance. Lu Mohan wasn't the only expert. After receiving Zhang Wangu's instructions, Zhang Heng's eyes finally became as ferocious as a wolf's. Without another word, he strode out of the Sky Alliance's encampment and rushed towards the Frost Alliance's encampment. At this moment, Yi Fei didn't know that under Zhang Wangu's instructions, Zhang Heng had already revealed his information to the Frost Alliance. Instead, he looked at the invitation card in his hand with a puzzled expression. This invitation card was naturally sent by a female disciple of the Xian Nu sect. She specifically invited Chu Ling and her 2 followers to attend the Dao discussion assembly tomorrow. Chu Ling was very surprised by this. Yi Fei and Wu Yu's expressions were very ugly. Although they had received the invitation, they didn't want to attend as Chu Ling's followers. "How is it, Yi Fei? Do we accept this invitation or not?" Chu Ling looked at Yi Fei first. After all, it was Yi Fei who proposed to exchange the stone house for mystic veins. She didn't want others to misunderstand. "Go, why not? With this invitation, we can still sell the remaining stone houses in our hands and save a lot of mystic veins." Wu Yu interrupted again. These words made Yi Fei finally make up his mind. After all, he was able to earn so many mystic veins this time because of the Xian Nu sect. Since they invited him, it didn't seem appropriate if he didn't go. "Alright, then we'll go and take a look." To be honest, Yi Fei was actually quite curious about the Xian Nu sect. Of course, he was just curious. Seeing that Yi Fei agreed, Chu Ling, who had already been given a lot of mystic veins, naturally didn't have any objections. As for Wu Yu, he knew how he felt when he saw this guy's wretched smile. Yi Fei couldn't be bothered to ask more. He walked back to his stone house and started cultivating again. Wu Yu and Chu Ling did the same. Chapter 2687. Deja vu. The news that the Holy Virgin of the Xian Nyu sect was going to hold a sparring session in the area of the small powers soon caused a sensation in the entire Great Void City. Not only were the heavens prides of the small powers excited, but the heavens prides of the other ancient kingdoms and ancient clans also showed strong anticipation and interest in this sparring session. Unfortunately, the number of stone houses in the area of the small powers was limited after all. The stone houses near the area of the Xian and Yu sect were all occupied by experts or bought at high prices. As a result, many people could only watch this Tao discussion and sigh. However, there were still some powerful ancient kingdoms and ancient clans who had obtained the qualifications to participate in this Tao debate through some means. For example, the Deputy Alliance Master of the Han Alliance, the strongest force in Taishu City, had decided to personally participate in this Tao discussion, which attracted a lot of attention. However, Yi Fei, who was immersed in his cultivation, did not know about all this. However, on the second day, Yi Fei and the other two were shocked when they saw a large number of warriors gathering from various regions. Those who came to participate in the Xian and Yu sect's discussion were not what they had expected. They were all male disciples who admired the Xian and Yu sect. Among them, there were also many female warriors who came to participate in the discussion. Moreover, the number of people was more than what the Xian Nu sect had stipulated. After all, the Xian and Yu sect only asked for about 300 stone houses in the encampment. However, there were more than 500 warriors who came to participate in the Tao discussion. Moreover, all of them were outstanding talents of the same generation who were either powerful, influential, or wealthy. This made Yi Fei feel somewhat puzzled. That's strange. What exactly does the Xian and Yu sect have? It's just a discussion held by a holy maiden. Why would it attract so many experts to participate? Among them, Yi Fei also saw the members of the newly established Heavenly Alliance mixed in with the crowd. At this moment, Wu Yu appeared out of nowhere and explained with a chuckle, "Yi Fei, you don't know about this, right? The women of the Xian Nu sect, other than being beautiful, all of them must have a strong connection with the heavens and earth. Furthermore, there are rumors that every generation's holy maiden of the Xian Nu sect can borrow the power of the heavens and earth to help warriors enter the Tao. This is also the reason why the Holy Maiden's Tao discussion attracts so many people." Only now did Yi Fei know why the Xian and Yu sect had such a great influence. After all, it was easy to cultivate divine powers, but difficult to enter the Tao. Any method or treasure that could help warriors enter the Tao would cause a mad scramble among warriors. Not to mention, the saintess of the Xian and Yu sect had the ability to help people comprehend the Tao. Chu Ling could not help but look at Wu Yue in a different light. She said, "No wonder you are so desperate to go to the Xian Nu sect to see the beauties. You want to use the help of the saintess to let you enter the Tao." Wu Yu was embarrassed when he heard this, and his face quickly became solemn as he said, "Of course, I said long ago that I, Wu Yu, am a gentleman. Unfortunately, you guys just don't believe me." Yi Fei could not help but cast a disdainful look at him. However, he did not expose him. Instead, the three of them followed the crowd and walked into the encampment of the Xian and Yu sect. They saw that after a day, the place had been cleaned up neatly. There were spiritual flowers of various colors all around, emitting a delicate fragrance. Beautiful female disciples of the Xian and Yu sect danced in the void like butterflies among flowers. Their dance seemed to have a special rhythm that could stir up the power of heaven and earth, causing the surrounding space and the concentration of qi to increase rapidly by a few times, or even dozens of times. This kind of profound energy concentration was already equivalent to some of the blessed paradises. Those martial warriors who were not invited and came along were all ecstatic when they saw this. They found a place to sit down cross-legged and began to frantically absorb the profound energy that had gathered. Regardless of whether it was the speed or quality of their cultivation, there was a significant improvement. As for Yi Fei and the others who were invited or had given up their stone houses, they continued to walk deeper into the encampment of the Xian and Yu sect under the lead of a sweet-looking woman. There was actually a huge altar here. On the altar stood a woman wearing a veil and bamboo hat. Although her appearance could not be seen clearly, one could roughly judge that the holy maiden of the Xian Nyu sect must be extraordinarily beautiful from her graceful figure and the glow on her body. It's a pity that we can't see her face. It's a pity. Wu Yu shook his head regretfully, immediately attracting the angry gazes of many warriors. Chu Ling quickly pretended that she didn't know Yi Fei and Wu Yu, minding her own business as she walked to the side. Yi Fei had the urge to kick Wu Yu. "Will you die if you don't lock me up?" "But I'm telling the truth. Don't you want to see the holy maiden's face?" It would have been better if Wu Yu did not say anything. Hearing this, Yi Fei was really curious about what the holy maiden looked like. At this time, an abrupt voice suddenly came from behind. "Holy maiden of the Xian Nyu sect, since you invited us to discuss the Tao but did not let us see your true appearance, isn't it a little rude? So it's the vice leader of the Han Alliance, Ouyang Changkong. Then you should be clear about the rules of our Xian Nyu sect. If Mr. Ouyang wants to see my true appearance, then you must pass my zither test. It's the same for all the other misters. Whoever can pass my zither illusion can go up this altar and meet with me." The holy maiden's cold voice came from the altar. She seemed like a fairy who was not from the mortal world, but also had an indescribable strange allure that made many women unable to help but feel moved. Chu Ling's face was even redder. She secretly cursed a vixen. Her voice was so seductive even through the veil. If she revealed her true appearance, it would be even worse. Especially when she saw that even Yi Fei's mouth was wide open, Chu Ling had the urge to kick him. Wu Yu, who was standing at the side, could not help but scream. He did not understand. He did not provoke Chu Ling, so why was he kicked for no reason? However, he did not know that Yi Fei was not like the others who were seduced by the holy maiden's voice. Instead, he heard an incomparably familiar feeling from this voice. Almost subconsciously, a name came out of Yi Fei's mouth. "Shanglua? How dare you?" Yi Fei's voice startled the disciples of the Xian Nyu sect. One had to know that the holy maiden's name had never spread outside of the Xian Nyu sect. In the end, it was exposed by Yi Fei. How could they not be shocked? Even the holy maiden on the altar could not help but look at Yi Fei with a surprised gaze. Then, her eyes suddenly revealed an extremely strange look. She continued to use that seductive voice to ask, "Who are you?" "My name is Xian Tian, not Shanglua." "Shanglua, you don't know me? I am Yi Fei." Yi Fei looked at Shanglua strangely. Even though she was wearing a veil bamboo hat and her expression and manner of speech had changed, this voice was indeed Shanglua's voice. Yi Fei definitely would not be mistaken. Chapter 2688. Ouyang Changkong Cricket. You actually have the nerve to use such an old-fashioned method? Wu Yu was also dumbfounded. Then, he looked at Yi Fei with disdain. Yi Fei had just said that he was a pervert, but he was clearly a kindred spirit. "So it's young Master Yi." On the high platform, the Xiantian holy maiden was still quiet. Yi Fei couldn't tell whether she was Shanglua or just had a similar voice to Shanglua. Yi Fei subconsciously wanted to wake Xiao Chao up and see the true appearance of the holy maiden under the veil. However, when he heard his words, an extremely cold gaze suddenly swept over Yi Fei. The owner of this gaze was none other than Ouyang Changkong. Ouyang Changkong was not only a young genius second only to Lu Mohan in this generation of Imperial Sky, but he was also Lu Mohan's best friend. That was why Lu Mohan was relieved to leave the matters of the Han Alliance to him, while he took the opportunity to go to Chu to plot something big. However, for some reason, Lu Mohan suddenly gave up on Chu and returned to Imperial Sky to cultivate in seclusion. It turned out that Ouyang Changkong, who was in Taishu City, was surprised a few days ago until Zhang Heng came to reveal that Lu Mohan's failure to control Chu was actually because of Yi Fei. As Lu Mohan's best friend and the right-hand man of the Han Alliance, Ouyang Changkong almost immediately had a strong desire to kill Yi Fei. However, he didn't expect that the two of them would meet at the Profound Lady Sect's Tao Discussion Conference. This is really interesting. Xiantian Holy Maiden, this person is not a young master. He's just an ant who got lucky by chance. Also, what kind of despicable means did you use to sneak into this meeting? Kneel on the ground right now and tell me everything you know. Ouyang Chongkong took a step forward in an extremely cold and detached manner. Although he was only one person, he gave off a powerful pressure that was as heavy as Mount Tai. Many female disciples of the Xian Nu sect were secretly moved. Although Ouyang Chongkong was not a peerless genius, his aura was not far from it. The reason why the Xian Nyu sect was sought after by so many young geniuses was because they could sense the heavens and earth and help others to comprehend Tao. The other reason was that these female disciples were all youthful and beautiful. They were the ideal partners of many young geniuses. At this moment, Ouyang Chongkong had the intention of taking the beauty away. While publicly humiliating Yi Fei, not only did he stand up for his best friend, but he could also perform well in front of the saintess. Yi Fei couldn't help but frown. Although he didn't know Ouyang Chongkong's intentions, he vaguely understood something when he heard that this person was the deputy alliance leader of the Han Alliance. His tone inevitably turned cold. I'm talking to the saintess. It's none of your business. The saintess didn't even say I was rude. Who do you think you are? How dare you make decisions for the saintess? Boom! His words not only shocked the surrounding cultivators, but also many female disciples of the Xian Nu sect couldn't help but cast curious glances at Yi Fei. He clearly knew that the other party was the deputy alliance leader of the Han Alliance, yet he still dared to oppose him. It had to be said that Yi Fei was indeed very bold. Strange, why hadn't they heard of such a crazy person in the Rising Dragon sect before? Even the saintess couldn't help but stare at Yi Fei in confusion. Seeing that Yi Fei had completely attracted the saintess' attention with just a few words, Ouyang Chongkong's gaze could kill. He was instantly enraged. He directly released his killing intent and shrouded Yi Fei. Just because of what you said, I have the right to kill you completely. I think you shouldn't be called Ouyang Chongkong. You should be called Ouyang Chiosi. If you want to die, I can fulfill your wish. Yi Fei's tone became colder and colder. He didn't want to cause trouble, but if someone bullied him, he definitely wouldn't submit to humiliation. If Ouyang Chongkong wanted to fight, he would definitely accompany him. At the same time, an awe-inspiring sword intent tore through the shroud of killing intent and soared into the sky. Many people were shocked. Was he really going to fight? And in front of the saintess of the Xian Nu sect? Saintess, what should we do? The female disciples of the Xian Nu sect looked at their saintess nervously. After all, this was the Tao discussion organized by the Xian Nu sect. If Yi Fei and Ouyang Chongkong messed it up, it would inevitably damage the reputation of the Xian Nu sect. Only then did the saintess suppress the strange feeling she had for Yi Fei in her heart. She suddenly sat down cross-legged and plucked the zither beside her. In an instant, it was as if the sound of nature had resounded in the void. It was deafening and refreshing. Hearing the sound of the zither, Yi Fei found that the battle intent in his heart had strangely disappeared. At the same time, Ouyang Chongkong's anger had also disappeared. On the high altar, the quiet voice of the saintess of the Xian Nu sect could be heard. Two young masters, please calm down. After all, this is the Tao discussion organized by the Xian Nu sect. If the two of you fight, wouldn't it make things difficult for me? So, please give me some face and stop fighting for the time being. How about it? It's indeed the voice of Shanglu. However, her tone isn't as lively as Shanglua's. Instead, it has an indescribable charm that affects others' emotions. Yi Fei's expression was strange. Could it be that he had mistaken her for someone else? Was this saintess of the Xian Nu sect really not Shanglua? Was it just her voice that was similar? All right, since the saintess has spoken, I won't lower myself to the level of such a small character. However, saintess, since I've given you face, I wonder if the Saintess can let me see your true appearance? Ouyang Changkong's eyes were burning. He had not forgotten that he had come here to win the Saintess's heart. As for Yi Fei, he was about to die. Whether he died early or late, it was up to Ouyang Changkong to decide. The expressions of many cultivators turned ugly. Many of them were admirers of the Saintess. Ouyang Changkong was clearly ignoring them and wanted to pursue the Saintess directly. However, Ouyang Changkong's identity was there. He was an Imperial Sky disciple and the Deputy Alliance Master of the Frost Alliance. He was not someone that ordinary people could offend. Many people's eyes dimmed. They understood that with Ouyang Changkong around, it was basically impossible for them to get close to the Saintess. However, Yi Fei's heart skipped a beat. He was still somewhat unwilling. This Saintess's voice and figure were simply too similar to Shanglua's. If he could see the Saintess's true appearance, he might be able to determine whether this Saintess was the Shanglua he knew. Hence, Yi Fei also took a step forward and cupped his hand. I'm also very interested in the Saintess's appearance. I wonder how I can see the Saintess's true appearance? Boom! Yi Fei's words caused an uproar among the cultivators present. Ouyang Changkong was pursuing the Saintess because he had the confidence. Where did Yi Fei come from? How dare he say such a thing? This is clearly blatant flirting. This is already the second time. Countless eyes filled with murderous intent glared at Yi Fei. It was a completely different treatment from Ouyang Changkong. However, there was also a gaze of admiration that was fixed on Yi Fei. At this moment, Wu Yu was full of admiration for Yi Fei. I didn't expect that Brother Ye's courage to dare to think is something that I can't compare to. Brother Yi, you can do it. I support you. Chapter 2689. Zither entering the Tao on the high altar, the mysterious Heaven Saintess looked at Yi Fei with a strange expression, but she still nodded slightly and said, "Of course you can. According to the rules of my mysterious lady main sect, as long as someone can resist my zither music and walk to my side, they will naturally be able to see my true appearance. Young Master Yi, if you want to see, you might as well walk up to the altar." After that, the mysterious Heaven Saintess stopped talking. Even her voice became ethereal, as if the heavens and earth were trembling. The multicolored light around her body turned into a strange flame of consciousness that lit up the altar. At this moment, the mysterious Heaven Saintess's figure seemed to have grown taller on the altar. She raised her hand slightly and plucked the zither strings. Suddenly, the entire area was filled with the sound of nature. Along with the sound of nature, it seemed as if the power of the heavens and earth was being mobilized by the zither music, emitting waves of indistinct rumbling sounds. Many cultivators who heard the sound of the Tao were wild with joy. This was because the sound of the Tao could actually inspire their Tao hearts that had yet to be established. They couldn't help but be immersed in it. They could greatly comprehend their own divine abilities and reach the realm of entering the Tao through divine abilities. However, not everyone was immersed in the sound of the Tao. There were many cultivators with greater aptitudes and talents who were still standing in place, as if waiting for something. Ouyang Changkong was one of them. He didn't use the sound of the zither to enter the Tao. Instead, his eyes suddenly turned cold as he looked at Yi Fei provocatively. "I really don't know whether to call you stupid or courageous. How can a nobody like you covet the beauty of the Saintess? However, since you want to humiliate yourself, I will fulfill your wish. How about we make a bet? Whoever walks up to the altar first will win. The loser will have to crawl under the winner's legs. Do you dare to accept?" Due to the existence of the Xiannu sect, Ouyang Changkong could not attack Yi Fei on the spot. However, he did not want Yi Fei to have an easy time. Therefore, he proposed this almost humiliating bet, which caused many people to be in an uproar. Hearing this, Yi Fei's gaze suddenly turned cold. He nodded coldly and said, "If you want to bet, I can accompany you. However, the rules need to be changed. The loser will not only have to crawl under the opponent's legs, he will also have to stand still and allow the winner to attack him once. Do you dare to take it? Boom. As Yi Fei spoke, an intense sword light and battle intent erupted from his body. The identity of the mysterious Sky Saintess was a mystery that he had to unravel. At the same time, he had to ruthlessly retaliate against Ouyang Changkong's insult. Alright, I agree. Since you're looking for death, I'll fulfill your wish. Ouyang Changkong's gaze was already cold. He was the deputy alliance leader of the Han Alliance. He was also the strongest young genius in the Imperial Sky after Lu Mohan. On the other hand, who was Yi Fei? He was just a nobody who came out of nowhere. How could he take him to heart? After saying this, Ouyang Changkong had already lifted his foot and strode towards the high altar. Wu Yue and Chu Ling looked at Yi Fei nervously. They did not understand why Yi Fei would accept such a bet. Only Yi Fei knew that searching for Shangluo and Wang Bai was his two greatest obsessions after entering the Heaven Realm. Even if Ouyang Changkong did not force him, he would still walk over with the zither music without hesitation. I want to see if you are really Shangluo. Dong. Yi Fei's footsteps stepped on the rhythm of the zither music. In an instant, many chaotic heavenly path notes appeared around his body. These notes all turned into sharp blades that slashed towards him. However, Yi Fei did not even look at them. The purple-gold Tai Chi had already turned into a bright Tai Chi ball that protected him. You have some ability. No wonder you dare to overestimate yourself and go against the Han Alliance. Unfortunately, the zither music of the mysterious lady sect is not something that you can break with brute force. Ding ding dong dong. Suddenly, a harp appeared in Ouyang Changkong's hand. He was actually using the zither music to fight against the mysterious Sky Saintess. He was very elegant and extraordinary. Mysterious Sky Saintess, I sincerely pursue you. If you are willing to marry me, I, Ouyang Changkong, swear that I will never let you down. Following Ouyang Changkong's affectionate words, the zither music in his hand turned into a divine dragon and a colorful phoenix that danced in the air. The beautiful eyes of many disciples of the mysterious lady sect lit up when they saw this. On the other hand, Yi Fei was purely using his golden body to fight against the zither music. There was no beauty in him at all. This also made some disciples of the mysterious lady sect secretly shake their heads. How could such a boorish man win the heart of the saintess? This Yi Fei is really reckless. Doesn't he know that Ouyang Changkong is not only talented, but he is also a musical master? He has no chance of winning at all. Zhang Heng stood in the crowd and looked at Yi Fei with satisfaction. He was looking forward to the moment when Yi Fei would be humiliated. Unfortunately, Zhang Heng did not notice that on the altar, when the mysterious Sky Saintess saw that Ouyang Changkong was also using the zither music to fight against her, a playful smile appeared on her originally serious face. Then, the zither music suddenly changed. The musical notes that filled the sky suddenly disappeared. At the same time, an extremely special sound entered everyone's ears. Hearing this sound, Wu Yu suddenly became angry. He really wanted to go berserk. Chu Ling was also shocked. She touched the corner of her eye. There was actually a drop of crystal-clear tear rolling down her cheek. Not good. This is the mysterious lady sect's 7-killing zither music. It specifically targets the 7 emotions and 6 desires of a martial artist. Once you are immersed in it, you are completely finished. However, this is not a problem for me. Dong, dong, dong. Ouyang Changkong's hair and beard fluttered in the wind. As he plucked the harp with both hands, he continuously stomped his feet. Suddenly, he used a strange movement technique and deftly avoided all the zither music that suddenly appeared. This action made the beautiful eyes of many disciples of the mysterious lady sect light up. This time, if Ouyang Changkong was not pursuing the saintess but another female disciple, there would probably be someone who could not help but fall for him. Yi Fei was also secretly shocked. He did not expect Ouyang Changkong's talent to be so terrifying. He was actually able to combine a divine ability with music. No wonder this person was so confident and rushed to pursue the mysterious lady sex saintess. This won't do. If this continues, I might lose. It seems that I have to use my trump card. Using the ancient god golden body could indeed resist the zither music. However, the consumption was also huge, especially after the mysterious sky saintess changed the zither music. Immediately, the undying sword token appeared in Yi Fei's hand. Just when everyone thought that Yi Fei was going to rely on a divine ability and continue to use brute force to break through, Yi Fei's sword suddenly became magnificent. Chapter 2690. There was nothing the sword could not destroy. There was nothing the sword could not reach. There was nothing the sword could not move forward. The sword could kill and bring people back to life. This was Yi Fei's sword. This was Yi Fei's way of the sword. His sword seemed to be radiating cold light. However, was it really cold light? It was Yi Fei's feelings. He had understood the heart of the sword and entrusted his feelings to the sword. In his hands, the sword was no longer a sword. It was his will, his spirit, and his soul. Clang! Clang! The sound of the sword whistled. That was Yi Fei's will. Through a special sword language, it resonated with the heavens and the earth and communicated with the sound of the guqin. Although Yi Fei did not know anything about music, everything returned to one. The sound of the guqin was the sound of the sword. Hence, Yi Fei danced with his sword and sang with the sound of the sword. As he sang and danced, people seemed to see a young man walking from loneliness to glory. He walked from a ditch to a vast ocean. He walked from a desolate land to a bustling world. Yi Fei's sword was not very strong. However, it contained an infinite number of swords. Devour the heavens, bury the heavens, burn the heavens, and exterminate the heavens. The 4 great sword techniques were displayed by him. Although many martial artists thought that this kind of martial emperor-level technique was of the lowest level, Yi Fei released a kind of magnificence. He displayed a great spirit that could devour the heavens and the earth. Following after that, this spirit turned into a fierce, murderous aura. It was like the roar of thousands of soldiers and horses. It was also like the anger of millions of people. The way of the emperor, the way of the human emperor. Yi in one breath, Fei displayed the most basic way of the sword. He displayed the great sword of slaughter, the great sword of desolation, the great sword of indestructibility, and the deity blood sword. All kinds of way of the sword merged with his body and soul. 2. However, a terrifying indestructible sword spirit burned behind him. It was as if Yi Fei's life was burning at this moment. Then, he stepped on the sword light and strode forward. Regardless of whether it was the notes of anger or sadness, they were all reflected by the Taiji sword dance that merged all kinds of way of the sword. They became dim and lost their luster. It's so beautiful. I didn't expect that a murderous sword could become so beautiful. Among the crowd, there was no lack of people who used swords. Many of them were even sword geniuses from their respective regions. However, they asked themselves if they would be able to display the killing intent of their swords in such a magnificent manner like Yi Fei's. Yi Fei's movements were filled with the charm of heaven and earth. This was no longer a simple swordsmanship, it was the Tao of the sword god. Without a doubt, under the influence of the first Emperor Chu's memories of the sword Tao and the terrifying sword strike of the ancient sword god, Yi Fei's sword Tao had already transformed from an ordinary sword cultivator's Tao into a sword god's Tao. Because Yi Fei's entire soul had fused with the sword Tao. At this moment, he was the sword and the sword was him. It was difficult to tell them apart. How could the 7 murder zither music of the Xian heaven saintess provoke his emotions and affect his steps? This gorgeous Taiji sword dance made almost all the female disciples of the Xian Nu sect turn their eyes to Yi Fei. They blushed and their hearts raced. Although Yi Fei's bloodline wasn't strong and he wasn't very handsome, Yi Fei had a special charm that Ouyang Changkong didn't have. That was the heroic spirit of the sword that dared to disregard everything in the face of a strong enemy. What should I do? I suddenly feel that this young Master Yi is so handsome. I really want to give birth to a bunch of monkeys for him. Didn't you just say that you've fallen in love with young Master Ouyang? That was just now. Now, I feel that I still prefer young Master Yi. A certain female disciple of the Xian Nu sect had undoubtedly been completely conquered by the beauty of Yi Fei's sword Dao. The more she looked at Yi Fei, the more charming he became. She didn't even look at Ouyang Changkong, which caused an uproar among many martial artists. Many prodigies who used the sword even began to observe Yi Fei's sword dance attentively, trying to comprehend the secrets of the sword dance so that they could win the hearts of many fairies in the future. In the face of all this, Ouyang Changkong, who had overheard the conversation between the two female disciples, was so angry that his face turned ashen. His footsteps were slightly disordered, and Yi Fei had already faced the difficulties. He directly danced with his sword and swept away the 7 murder notes that filled the sky. He strode like a meteor and headed straight for the altar. Such an action was undoubtedly a slap to Ouyang Changkong's face. I'm the dignified Deputy Alliance Leader of the Han Alliance. I'm skilled in both magic and music. I don't believe that I'm inferior to a brute like you. War drums beat for me. Boom, boom, boom. A small war drum suddenly appeared in Ouyang Changkong's hand. It beat wildly, and the huge notes actually completely drowned out the sound of the 7 murder note. It also awakened all the martial artists who were in a state of enlightenment. It attracted the extremely dissatisfied gazes of countless martial artists. It was one thing for Ouyang Changkong to fight, but why did he have to affect all of them? Then, the female disciple of the Xian Nu sect, who had unintentionally fallen for Yi Fei, was so angry that her face turned red. She spoke up for Yi Fei. Ouyang Changkong, you're so shameless. We're competing in pinyin, and you actually used a divine weapon. You've really embarrassed the Han Alliance and the Imperial Sky. Why? Needless to say, women were fickle. Just a moment ago, this woman had been looking at Ouyang Changkong with sparkling eyes. However, once she was mesmerized by Yi Fei's sword dance, she immediately began to glare coldly at Ouyang Changkong. Ouyang Changkong's heart was filled with immense anger and grievance. However, if he didn't use the war drum, he wouldn't be able to stride forward like Yi Fei and flatten everything with his sword dance. Ouyang Changkong's expression instantly turned cold. He snorted coldly and said, "Humph! When I made a bet with him, there was no rule against using a divine weapon or any other external aid. In short, whoever reaches the Holy Maiden's side first will win. I, Ouyang Changkong, will definitely win." Boom. Ouyang Changkong relied on the rumbling of the war drum. He no longer played with elegance. He directly used the most violent method to shatter all the note. He was even faster than Yi Fei as he took the lead and rushed toward the Holy Maiden on the altar. Not good. This kid is cheating. Yi Fei might be defeated. Chuling and Wuyue were very nervous. After all, the loser could crawl under the other party's legs. Although they wouldn't be injured, they would lose face and never be able to raise their heads again. Here at this moment, Chu Ling and Wuyue secretly regretted not stopping Yi Fei in advance. Yi Fei was also a little surprised. He hadn't expected Ouyang Changkong to have such a war drum that could ignore the 7 kills zither notes attack. However, if Ouyang Changkong thought that he had won just like that, then he was gravely mistaken. After all, his sword dance wasn't just a Taiji sword dance. The magnificent sword dance suddenly condensed like a whirlwind. Yi Fei's figure suddenly disappeared from the spot and reappeared abruptly in front of the altar. Since Ouyang Changkong didn't play by the rules, then he couldn't be blamed for using his spatial mystique. Damn it! I, Ouyang Changkong, will definitely not lose to an ant that I despise. Ouyang Changkong's eyes suddenly turned cold. As he urged on the war drum, his body turned into a series of afterimages. He rushed quickly toward the holy maiden on the altar at the same time as Yi Fei. They were less than 10 steps away from the holy maiden. This. Chapter 2691. In the end, who would rush to the saintess side first? Xian the saintess gave the answer. Her zither music became more and more ethereal. Suddenly, it annihilated the war drums and suppressed Yi Fei's swordlight. The two of them stepped onto the altar almost at the same time. At the same time, they were shocked. Yi Fei was surprised to find that when he first stepped onto the altar, his body began to hurt. It was as if something was being peeled off and integrated into the altar. It's the bloodline. This altar is actually devouring my bloodline. Ouyang Changkong's face was filled with anger and fear. Saintess Xian Tian, I came to pursue you with good intentions. Why do you want to harm me? It should be known that devouring bloodline was different from burning bloodline. When a martial artist burned their bloodline, it only stimulated the power of the bloodline. As long as it was not burned too thoroughly, it could be recovered in the future like Xian Qi. However, devouring bloodline meant that it was truly lost and could not be recovered. At this moment, Yi Fei had only taken one step towards the Saintess Xian Tian, but he felt that a layer of his bloodline had been stripped away and became much weaker. If he continued to move forward, it was very likely that his bloodline would continue to be devoured and its grade would not continue to decrease. And for a martial artist, the strength of their bloodline directly affected their comprehension of supernatural abilities and combat strength. No martial artist would tolerate their bloodline being damaged, especially a proud son of heaven like Ouyang Changkong. It was even more impossible for him to tolerate this. When he discovered that this altar was actually able to devour his bloodline, Ouyang Changkong subconsciously retracted his leg. The Saintess Xian Tian's familiar voice came from the altar. If you want to see my true appearance, you will naturally have to pay a corresponding price. Now, the two of you have two choices. One is to step back and the other is to continue forward. However, the Xian Tian sect will not be responsible for the damage to your bloodline. Only now did the crowd realize that it was not so easy to see the Saintess Xian Tian's true appearance. As long as the Saintess was unwilling, no one could get within 10 steps of her. It looks like unless the Holy Maiden has truly fallen in love with that person, it is impossible for others to see the Holy Maiden's true appearance. A cultivator couldn't help but sigh. This sigh made Ouyang Changkong's expression turn even uglier. However, he soon thought of something and looked at Yi Fei with extreme disdain. Consider yourself lucky, you ant. If the Saintess had not been so determined, I would have made you crawl under my legs. Count me lucky? Ouyang Changkong, open your dog eyes wide and take a good look. The battle is not over yet, so what are you being so arrogant for? Dong. Ignoring everyone's shocked gazes, Yi Fei did not withdraw his footsteps like Ouyang Changkong. Instead, he continued to stride forward, fiercely walking towards the mysterious Sky Saintess. This scene caused everyone, including Ouyang Changkong, to widen their eyes in shock. Chu Ling was so shocked that she covered her mouth. This guy is crazy. He knows that this altar will devour his bloodline. Why did he step on it? A lowly commoner will always be a lowly commoner. He only knows how to show off his courage. Even if you ignore the damage to your bloodline and walk to the Saintess side, so what? Do you think the Saintess of the Xian Nu sect will be together with a trash with a damaged bloodline? Ouyang Changkong's expression was indifferent. His words caused many people to nod in agreement. They all felt that Yi Fei was too impulsive and irrational. Just even the mysterious Sky Saintess looked at Yi Fei with an extremely strange and shocked expression. Why? You would rather damage your bloodline to see my true appearance. Could it be that you like me that much? Speak. As she spoke, a trace of shyness appeared on the mysterious Sky Saintess' face. Seeing this, Yi Fei broke out in a cold sweat. He couldn't help but explain with a bitter smile, I don't like you. I just feel that you are the old friend that I have been looking for. Although you have not admitted it, I know that you must be her. Mysterious hearing this, the mysterious sky saintess was stunned. She looked at Yi Fei with an increasingly strange expression. You are really strange. Who exactly is it that can make you disregard everything and damage your bloodline to find her? Is she your lover? No, she is my friend. It is my negligence that caused her to be in great danger. Therefore, I have to find her and bring her home. A trace of pain appeared on Yi Fei's face. However, the warmest and happiest smile hung at the corner of his mouth. Moreover, you think that you can damage my bloodline with a mere musical illusion? You think too highly of me. Dong, dong. Stepping on the violent musical notes that filled the sky, Yi Fei suddenly took 10 steps in a spurt of energy. At this moment, everyone could no longer feel his bloodline. However, Yi Fei's aura did not weaken at all. Instead, it became stronger. Just like that, he strode to the mysterious sky saintess side in front of everyone's stunned eyes. He directly took off the saintess's veiled bamboo hat, revealing a surprised face. Shangluo, it's really you. Look at how big your mouth is. Don't be surprised. Eat a spiritual melon to calm yourself down. As he spoke, Yi Fei took out a juicy spiritual melon. The mysterious sky saintess took it almost instinctively and took a bite with great familiarity. It was only when she took a bite that she suddenly realized what had happened. Not only was she molested by Yi Fei in front of everyone, but she even ate a strange fruit that a stranger handed to her. You! Immense anger suddenly appeared on the saintess' body. She suddenly had the impulse to jump up and kill Yi Fei on the spot. However, before she could do anything, Yi Fei had already waved his hand domineeringly. I know that you like to eat spiritual melons. You don't have to thank me. Wait for me to settle things first, then I will catch up with you. After saying that, Yi Fei quickly rushed down the altar, as if he was afraid that someone would run away. At this time, everyone finally noticed that the strong bloodline aura on Yi Fei's body didn't show any signs of being devoured. Obviously, Yi Fei's judgment was true. The scene of the altar devouring the bloodline was only a strong illusion created by the mysterious sky saintess using her zither music. However, that illusion was so real that even a genius like Ouyang Changkong believed it was real and didn't dare to take the risk. On the other hand, Yi Fei directly ignored all difficulties with his fearless heart and forcibly broke through the illusion. Ming at this point, Ouyang Changkong's face was no longer ashen. Instead, it instantly turned purple. He stared coldly at Yi Fei and said coldly, surnamed Yi Yuan. Let's wait and see. Ming. After saying that, Ouyang Changkong quickly turned around and left this place that embarrassed him. This time, he came full of confidence and thought that he would definitely win the saintess' heart. In the end, he made a fool of himself. Ouyang Changkong's body was trembling with anger. He had even decided that when he returned, he would lead the people of the Han Alliance to settle the score with Yi Fei so that Yi Fei wouldn't even have the chance to step into the land of the Great Void. Chapter 2692. Scram. Who do you think you are to block my path? Do you believe that I can kill an ant like you with a slap? Ouyang Changkong was furious. Someone actually dared to stop him from leaving. He immediately had the thought of killing Wu Yu with a slap. But before Ouyang Changkong could do anything, Chu Ling reacted and suddenly appeared beside Wu Yu. She said coldly, Ouyang Changkong, if you have the guts, kill me too. Ouyang Changkong, don't be rash. Chu Ling is our sect master's personal disciple. Nothing can happen to her. Zhang Heng never dreamed that Ouyang Changkong would be defeated. Now that he was going to attack Chu Ling, he could only quickly transmit his voice. Otherwise, if anything happened to Chu Ling, the crazy sect master Zhang Lang would definitely tear him apart. Even Zhang Wangu wouldn't be able to protect him. Ouyang Changkong's expression became more and more ugly. He couldn't make a move, nor could he not make a move. Just as he was in a dilemma, Yi Fei finally rushed down from the altar. He used his spatial ability and directly appeared beside Wu Yu and Chu Ling. The three of them stood side by side and faced Ouyang Changkong. Ouyang Changkong, did you forget about our bet? That's right. I remember someone saying that whoever loses will have to crawl under the other party's legs. Wu Yu deliberately said in a loud voice. These words finally reminded everyone. Yi Fei and Ouyang Changkong still had a bet. Originally, this bet was proposed by Ouyang Changkong to humiliate Yi Fei. At that time, no one was optimistic about Yi Fei. They thought that Yi Fei was asking to be humiliated by fighting with Ouyang Changkong. Just now, everyone's attention was focused on Yi Fei actually daring to flirt with the holy maiden in public and stuffing some unknown fruit into her mouth. They were so shocked that they forgot about this bet. At this time, after Wu Yu's loud reminder, everyone came to their senses. Ha ha, there's going to be a good show to watch now. I originally thought that Ouyang Changkong would lose in this battle and humiliate Yi Fei. But now, it's the other way around. Heavens, the deputy leader of the Han Alliance is about to be humiliated. This might be the most explosive news in Taishu City. In an instant, almost everyone's gazes gathered onto Ouyang Changkong, causing a trace of panic and paleness to appear on Ouyang Changkong's purplish face. He hated Yi Fei and Wu Yu to the bones. Originally, he wanted to take advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention to slip away in advance. In the end, he was stopped by Wu Yu and announced it so loudly. If he continued to leave silently, then his reputation would definitely be ruined and he would be tarnished as someone who went back on his word. However, if he was really willing to accept his loss and suffer the humiliation, then he would really have no face to see others in the future. Thinking of this, Ouyang Changkong finally restrained his anger. He looked coldly at Yi Fei and said, Yi Fei, I admit that there is a small misunderstanding between us. If you are willing to reconcile with me, I promise that the Han Alliance will not target you in the future. I will also not interfere in the grudge between you and Lu Mohan. How about it? In the face of the possible humiliation, Ouyang Changkong finally decided to use some kind of conciliatory means to Yi Fei. However, even if it was conciliatory, he also acted high and mighty, as if he was doing charity. Feeling this person's attitude, even if there was no enmity between the two of them, Yi Fei's heart would still be filled with anger. He immediately took a step forward and said coldly, What a small misunderstanding. This misunderstanding made you want to kill me when you saw me without distinguishing between right and wrong. Is it because of this misunderstanding? Later, due to the obstruction of the Xiannu sect, you couldn't kill me in front of me. You immediately proposed a bet of humiliation, wanting to take the opportunity to humiliate me. Not to mention, when you lost the bet, not only did you want to sneak away, but you also wanted to attack Wu Yu and Chu Ling, who were blocking you. Could it be that in your eyes this is just a small misunderstanding? Yi Fei's words were sonorous, like the sound of a sword, shaking the hearts of the crowd. In the past, they only saw Ouyang Changkong's glamorous appearance, his identity as the deputy alliance leader of the Han Alliance, and his identity as an imperial sky genius. They didn't notice that Ouyang Changkong was actually a person who couldn't afford to lose. I didn't expect Ouyang Changkong to be such a person. To think that he was born with such good looks. Many female disciples of the Xiannu sect looked at Ouyang Changkong with disdain. Ouyang Changkong's expression also turned red and white when he heard these words. Almost at the moment when he was in a daze, Yi Fei suddenly appeared in front of Ouyang Changkong with a spatial shift. He directly slapped Ouyang Changkong's face like a violent hurricane, and only a loud slap was heard. Ouyang Changkong's face was already imprinted with 5 fingers. Ouyang Changkong was so angry that he was going crazy. He jumped up, wanting to fight Yi Fei to the death. However, He quickly thought of something and tried his best to suppress the crazy killing intent in his heart. He said, "Yi Fei, take this slap as repaying for the humiliation. In the future, Ouyang Changkong, will definitely return it to you 10,000 times over." After he finished speaking, Ouyang Changkong's expression had already regained its calm. He turned around and prepared to leave. Many cultivators who saw this nodded their heads. Although Ouyang Changkong had made a mistake this time and suffered a slap to the face, it was still bearable compared to the humiliation he had suffered before. Furthermore, after being slapped, Ouyang Changkong didn't lose his mind in anger. He even maintained a decent demeanor. This also proved that Ouyang Changkong's forbearance was extraordinary and could be considered as redeeming some of his dignity. However, what Yi Fei wanted was to trample on Ouyang Changkong's last shred of dignity. Immediately, he took a step forward and blocked Ouyang Changkong's path. "Stop right there. You can't leave yet. Trash, I've already let you slap me. What else do you want?" Ouyang Changkong's anger soared. He had already endured to the extreme to suppress his desire to kill Yi Fei. He didn't want others to say that he was a sore loser. In the end, Yi Fei still dared to criticize him? "I only slapped you once so that you could avoid the humiliation of stepping down. However, don't forget that in our wager, other than the humiliation of stepping down, we also have to stand still and endure the other party's attack," Yi Fei said coldly. These words caused an uproar once again. Yi Fei actually wanted to attack Ouyang Changkong once more after slapping him once. He was planning to thoroughly offend Ouyang Changkong. Ouyang Changkong's face instantly turned the color of a pig's liver. He shouted angrily, "Yi Fei, don't go overboard." "I went overboard. When you wanted to humiliate me, did you think about going overboard? When you failed to slip away and were blocked by my friend, you still wanted to attack. Wasn't that going overboard? Taking a step back if I had lost, would you have let me leave so easily?" Yi Fei's words were deafening. Many martialists nodded their heads in agreement. Ouyang Changkong could deny his loss because of his status and position. If Yi Fei had lost, it would have been impossible for him to leave so easily. He would have definitely suffered the humiliation and it would have become a stain on his life. Understanding this point, many people subconsciously stood on Yi Fei's side. This caused Ouyang Changkong's expression to become so unsightly that it was almost distorted. "Trash, what else do you want? Pa." Chapter 2693. "Now you can get lost," Yi Fei said coldly. He turned around and retreated to Chu Ling and Wu Yu's side. The surrounding crowd suddenly realized what had happened. Ouyang Changkong had been slapped twice in a row by the same person. This was too crazy. Ouyang Changkong was not only a genius of Imperial Sky, but also the deputy leader of the Han Alliance. And the Han Alliance was formed by the strongest group of young geniuses in Taishu City. Yi Fei slapped Ouyang Changkong's face, which was equivalent to slapping the entire Han Alliance's face. Ouyang Changkong touched his face that had been slapped. His face was already distorted to a terrifying extent. "Yi, you have guts. Ouyang Changkong, will definitely return these 2 slaps to you 100,000 times over." After staring at Yi Fei for a while, Ouyang Changkong turned around and left. After all, this was the territory of the Xian Nu sect. It would be inappropriate for him to make a move. However, Ouyang Changkong had never suffered such humiliation in his life. If he couldn't kill Yi Fei, it would be a stain on his life. Therefore, Ouyang Changkong immediately made a decision and rushed madly towards the Han Alliance's encampment. Seeing this scene, many warriors were secretly worried for Yi Fei. They weren't fools. Naturally, they could see that Ouyang Changkong's crazy departure would definitely not end well. Perhaps, as long as Yi Fei took a step out of the Xian Nu sect's encampment, the killing intent from the Han Alliance would completely destroy Yi Fei. Wu Yue and Chu Ling couldn't help but be a little worried. Yi Fei, aren't we going too far?
Going too far?
Would the Han Alliance let me go if today's matter hadn't happened? Yi Fei asked rhetorically. Wu Yu and Chu Ling couldn't help but nod. They knew about the grudge between Yi Fei and Lu Mohan. If Lu Mohan knew that Yi Fei was in Taishu City, he would definitely not be merciful. In that case, offending Ouyang Chongkong was no big deal. Wu Yue and Chu Ling both became relieved. Yi, however, Fei frowned. Just as he finished dealing with Ouyang Chongkong's matter and turned around, Shanglue had already disappeared. The altar that had been set up temporarily to sense the heaven and earth had also been removed. Good. Before the disciples of the Xian and V sect left, Yi Fei hurried over and cupped his hands. Fairies, where is your saint lady? Why didn't she see me? Xian Tian Saintus was Shanglue. Young Master Yi, let me answer this question. If you don't mind, let's go to the stone house over there for a chat. At this time, a middle-aged woman from the Xian Nu sect walked over. At the mention of this person, Yi Fei was taken aback. This person was none other than the only female sorcerer among the 12 sorcerer gods of the sorcerer tribe, Autumn Phoenix Sorcerer. It was just that Huang Qiu's appearance was different from when she was in the Earth domain. At this time, not only was her qi and blood declining, but even her appearance had become much older. However, there were too many people around. Yi Fei didn't ask much. He just nodded and followed Huang Qiu into an open space inside the Xian Nu sect. When there was no one around, Huang Qiu turned around with a complicated expression and smiled. Emperor Yi, long time no see. I didn't expect you to be so outstanding in the heaven domain. Which god Huang Qiu, don't tease me. Why are you with Shanglue? What did you experience in the heaven domain? Why did your appearance change? And Shanglue doesn't seem to recognize me? Yi Fei stared at Huang Qiu sternly. Huang Qiu, sorcerer goddess Qiu, was deeply moved. She still remembered that when she first met Yi Fei was merely a small gold great sorcerer. She had not taken him seriously at all. However, this small sorcerer in front of her had soared to the skies in an extremely short period of time. Not only had he become the human emperor revered by both the human and sorcerer races in the earth domain, but he had also displayed his abilities when he entered the heaven domain, making others look up to him. Looking at herself, she realized that she had aged. Autumn Phoenix, sorcerer god, had mixed feelings. She shook her head sadly. Originally, the 12 of us sorcerer gods thought that with our status and knowledge, we would be able to rise quickly after entering the heaven realm. However, when we entered the heaven realm, we realized that the ancient sorcerer way had already declined. Fortunately, the few of us from the sorcerer tribe could sense each other using sorcery. After 10 years, when we gathered together, only 7 of us were left. And among the 7 of us, one of us was actually Shanglue. She was the strongest genius in wizard techniques that I have ever seen. Her witch physique allowed her to easily sense the power of heaven and earth. So, the 6 of us decided to nurture Shanglue with all our might. Let her rise and then bring us back to the earth domain. Thinking of the struggle in the heaven domain, a trace of excitement appeared on Huang Qiu's face. At that time, they had gathered together and had an outstanding disciple like Shanglue. Especially Shanglue's talent in business, they quickly went from being poor to famous rich merchants. Huang Qiu and the other witch gods also used the large amount of dark stones and dark veins that Shanglue earned to quickly break through to the heavenly venerables and even the dominators. But, just when everyone was full of confidence for the future, they neglected that Shanglue's talent in business and her beauty had already attracted the attention of a big family. Then, suddenly, one day, the Lord of Heaven of this big family descended and said that he wanted to be a matchmaker for his foolish son. He wanted Shanglue to marry his son. Shanglue naturally did not agree. We also discussed whether we should give up the property here and go to other places to develop. But we still underestimated the determination of that big family. That night the Lord of Heaven brought his subordinates to snatch Shangluo away. He even killed witch god He Lu by mistake, and completely ignited the hatred between the two sides. The hateful Lord of Heaven saw that the matter had blown up and affected the family's reputation, and actually wanted to silence us. Thus, we had no choice but to join forces and activate a forbidden sorcery. Relying on the sorcery created by the Grand Sorcerer, the 6 of us joined forces and sacrificed to the heavens and earth. We borrowed the power of the heavens and earth to completely destroy the Lord of Heaven and all his subordinate. However, we also suffered a huge backlash. Among the 5 witch gods, 4 of us were turned into ashes by the backlash of the power of the heavens and earth. I was the only one left. I was deprived of my bloodline and youth. As for Shangluo, although we did our best to protect her, her soul was still severely injured and she was on the verge of death. At this point, witch god Qiu Huang also sighed. Hearing this, Yi Fei's heart also burned with anger. Then, he was a little puzzled. Since Shangluo's soul was severely injured, how did she survive, and how did she become the holy maiden of the Xiannu sect? Qiu Huang smiled bitterly. This can be considered Shangluo's luck. When we activated the sacrifice of the heavens and earth, it happened to be discovered by an elder of the Xiannu sect in the city. It was that elder who saved my life and also suppressed Shangluo's soul that was about to be destroyed. However, Shangluo also forgot everything because once her original memory is touched, the remaining power of the heavens and earth in her body will erupt again and take away her soul. After saying this, Qiu Huang bowed to Yi Fei. Therefore, Yi Fei, I am very happy that you are still thinking about finding Shangluo. However, please do not mention Shangluo's past. Otherwise, once you touch her sealed memory, when she recovers her memory, she will be destroyed by the power of the heavens and earth. After all, the sorcerer tribe was different from the ancient martial artists. Ancient martial artists fought with their own strength, while sorcerers borrowed the power of the heavens and earth to fight. Although borrowing the power of the heavens and earth could allow sorcerers to obtain extremely powerful attack power at an extremely low level, this power was ultimately borrowed and did not belong to them. Therefore, they would have to pay a huge price. This was the fundamental reason why the Archean sorcerers had been completely replaced by the ancient martial artists. Yi Fei had also practiced sorcery in the earth domain and had even become a sorcerer god. Naturally, he understood this point. However, in his heart, he was still a little unreconciled. Could it be that even the Xiannu sect has no way to help Shangluo recover from the damage to her soul? After all, there was an ancient god in the Xiannu sect. Chapter 2694. Shangluo's soul is injured. Ordinary ancient gods can't treat this kind of situation. Unless she can enter the land of the Great Void and obtain the inheritance of the Archean sorcerers, there might be a chance of recovery. Huang Qiu was a little worried. The land of the Great Void was once the last stronghold of the Grand Sorcerers. If we can't find the sorcery to reconstruct the soul even here, I really don't know how to face Shangluo. What, the Great Void was the last stronghold of the Grand Sorcerers? These words shocked Yi Fei. Huang Qiu nodded seriously and said, "That's right. The land of the Great Void was the last stronghold of the Grand Sorcerers, but it was destroyed in the end. So, Yi Fei, if you really want the best for Shangluo, you should stay in the land of the Great Void and help Shangluo." Huang Qiu, don't worry. I will take good care of Shangluo in the land of the Great Void. Yi Fei's expression was full of determination and a hint of guilt. Huang Qiu also noticed this. She smiled slightly and said, "We and Shangluo have never blamed you, so you don't have to be like this. However, Ouyang Changkong, you must be careful. If you don't mind, I can arrange for you to stay in the Xiannu sect temporarily until the trip to the Great Void begins." "There's no need. I have too many enemies. Staying here will be disadvantageous to the Xiannu sect." Yi Fei shook his head decisively. Although he knew that Huang Qiu was doing this for his own good, His hatred for LV Mohan was too deep. Now, he had offended Ouyang Changkong. Even if he hid in the Xian Nu sect with LV Mohan's strength, he would definitely rush in and settle the score with him. Since, in that case, he might as well just walk out and deal with whatever came his way. Otherwise, outsiders would think that he was afraid of the Han alliance and tarnish his reputation for nothing. Looking at Yi Fei's determined back view, Huang Qiu could not help but sigh. Yi Fei was still as fearless as she remembered. Unfortunately, this was no longer the land where a sorcerer could dominate. This was the heaven realm where experts were as common as clouds. With Yi Fei's bloodline talent, how far could he go with his unyielding pride? Seeing that Yi Fei did not stay in the Xian Nu sect to take refuge, but left decisively, many warriors were greatly shocked. Somewhere in the Xian Envi sect, a pair of beautiful eyes were also looking at Yi Fei's back. The owner of this pair of beautiful eyes was none other than Shangluo, the current Xian Tian Saintess. Shangluo always felt a sense of familiarity and sadness towards Yi Fei. This feeling caused her to go crazy. Not only that, Yi Fei had even pulled off her bamboo hat in front of everyone. This caused Shang Luo's heart to be in a state of chaos. In the depths of her soul, she felt a faint stabbing pain. This was why she ignored Yi Fei, intentionally avoiding him. However, for some reason, Shangluo could not bear to throw away the spiritual melon that Yi Fei gave her. Now that there were no outsiders, Shangluo secretly told herself that she would only take a bite. Just one bite was enough. Therefore, Shang Luo took a bite and felt that the taste of this spiritual melon was very good. He couldn't help but blush as he quietly took another bite. His face became moist and lively. But, unfortunately, this scene could not be seen by outsiders. After opening the Xian Nu sect, Yi Fei, Chu Ling, and Wu Yue continued to return to the stone house and began to cultivate in seclusion, waiting for the arrival of the trip to the Great Void. At the same time, the conflict between Yi Fei and Ouyang Changkong in the Xian Nu sect had been constantly spread and changed into many versions. There were some said that Yi Fei and Ouyang Changkong were jealous of each other and fought at the Dao discussion conference. Some said that Yi Fei flirted with the Xiantian holy maiden. Ouyang Changkong failed to save the damsel in distress and was humiliated by Yi Fei. Not only did he fail to save the damsel in distress, but he also suffered 2 slaps for nothing. Also some said that Yi Fei and the Xiantian holy maiden had been together for a long time, and that Ouyang Changkong wanted to snatch her away. In the end, he was ruthlessly slapped and had to leave in a sorry state. However, no matter which version it was, Ouyang Changkong was ruthlessly slapped twice. This was the truth. When the news spread, the entire Han Alliance's encampment was in an uproar. When Ouyang Changkong heard these rumors, he was so angry that he vomited blood on the spot. Even Zhang Wangu, who had secretly planned all this, felt a burst of shock. After all, Ouyang Changkong's bloodline talent was only slightly inferior to the legendary geniuses like them. However, when it came to martial arts, even Zhang Wangu dared not say that he could easily suppress him. In the end, not only did Yi Fei suppress him, but he also humiliated Ouyang Changkong. This made Zhang Wangu extremely surprised. It seems that I have underestimated this junior brother. Zhang Heng, did you find out that this Yi Fei really only has a 10th grade bloodline and has no special relationship with the sect leader? Zhang Wangu was a little confused. A 10th grade bloodline was considered amazing in some small areas. However, in the 9 major sects where geniuses gathered, it was somewhat mediocre. However, it was such a mediocre disciple who could make Ouyang Changkong suffer such a big loss. It felt a little strange. A look of resentment and jealousy flashed across Heng's face. She said coldly and disdainfully, "Don't worry, senior brother. I have already investigated Yi Fei's background clearly. He only has a 10th grade bloodline. However, this person is a little strange." Don't worry about strange. As long as he doesn't have a strong bloodline, then he is not worthy of me treating him as an opponent. Let the Han Alliance deal with him. Ouyang Changkong has lost so much face. He must hate Yi Fei to the bone now. Zhang Wangu's expression was indifferent, as if he was devising a strategy. However, he did not know that Ouyang Changkong hated Yi Fei to the bone. When the news spread, Ouyang Changkong even had the intention to fight with Yi Fei to the death. Almost on the second day after returning to the Han Alliance, Ouyang Changkong began to gather the disciples of the Han Alliance. They majestically rushed towards the area of the small forces, causing a huge commotion. Especially when they saw that Ouyang Changkong was going straight to the stone house of Yi Fei and the other two, many martial artists were completely in an uproar. They knew that the matter was completely out of control. Ouyang Changkong made it clear that he would not stop until he killed Yi Fei. This Yi Fei can't afford to offend anyone, but he chose to offend the Han Alliance. Isn't he tired of living? It's hard to say. Although the Han Alliance is strong, Yi Fei is not an ordinary person. He is a disciple of the Rising Dragon sect, and the strongest genius of the Rising Dragon sect has already formed the Heaven Alliance to faintly resist the Han Alliance. The martial artists who knew the inside story were still faintly hopeful. They thought that since Yi Fei had caused such a big commotion as the peerless genius of the Rising Dragon sect, Zhang Wangu, would definitely intervene. But soon, these people were disappointed. When the Han Alliance completely surrounded the stone house of Yi Fei and the other two, not a single Rising Dragon sect disciple appeared to help Yi Fei, let alone Zhang Wangu. In the stone house, Chu Ling's hands and feet were ice-cold. I never thought that senior brother Wangu would actually be such a person. To think that I used to worship him. Yi Fei shook his head in a deep voice. It's better to rely on yourself than on others. Chu Ling Wuyue, if I can't hold on, don't worry about me. Just leave. This was a grudge between him and Ouyang Changkong. He did not want to implicate Chu Ling and Wuyue. Listen. Hearing this, Chu Ling glared. If you chase me away, do you believe that I won't turn around and join Ouyang Changkong's camp? Chapter 2695. Feeling their determination, Yi Fei couldn't help but feel a warm current in his heart. He immediately walked out of the stone house with Chu Ling and Wu Yu. They saw that outside the stone house, there were already disciples of the Han Alliance standing there. Each of them was emitting an extremely dangerous aura. Ouyang Changkong was standing at the front. At this moment, he was looking down on them with incomparable arrogance. Yi Fei, do you still remember what I said? Everything you've done to me, I'll return it to you 100,000 times over. However, this time, I'm only targeting Yi Fei. Chu Ling Wu Yu, it's not too late for you two to leave now. Sorry, we'll only leave with Yi Fei. Chu Ling's attitude was very firm. Wu Yu also coldly mocked. The Han Alliance is only SOSO. You only know how to bully others with numbers. Bullshit. Do we need to gang up on a piece of trash from your Rising Dragon sect? Ouyang Changkong used an extremely cold gaze to stare at Wu Yu. Then, he looked at Yi Fei and said disdainfully, Today, I, Ouyang Changkong, led the Han Alliance here only to prevent you from running away in fear. Yi Fei, yesterday at the Xiannu sect, you used some tricks to humiliate me. Today, I'll let you know the consequences of angering me in front of everyone. Trash, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and fight. If you dare to run away today, I'll find your friends and family one by one and put them all to death. Ouyang Changkong's eyes flashed with humiliation and viciousness. Today, not only would he defeat Yi Fei and wash away his humiliation, he wouldn't even give Yi Fei a chance to escape. Hearing these words, Yi Fei's heart was suddenly filled with anger. A dragon had a reverse scale, and if one touched it, they would be enraged. Yi Fei's family and friends were exactly where Yi Fei's reverse scale was. Ouyang Changkong actually dared to touch it. Yi Fei didn't say anything. Suddenly, His body disappeared from where he was. After a while, he appeared in front of Ouyang Changkong, shocking many disciples of the Han Alliance. It's actually teleportation. No wonder this person dares to go against my Han Alliance. It's a pity that space diversion is a powerful weapon against people of the same level, but against Deputy Chief Ouyang, it's a joke. Rumble. The war drum rumbled. Facing Yi Fei, who was charging towards him, that peculiar war drum appeared in Ouyang Changkong's hands once again. Following the activation of his profound energy, the war drum actually automatically exploded with a terrifying rumble. This roar shook the souls of the martial artists. Many martial artists with weak minds immediately felt a stabbing pain in their divine souls. They were unable to withstand the terrifying sound of the war drum, and this was only the aftermath of the war drum. At this time, most of the war drum's attack power had been concentrated by Ouyang Changkong, forming an invisible sound wave that fiercely bombarded the surrounding space. Yi Fei felt that the space that he could shift had collapsed in an instant. Ouyang Changkong had actually used a peculiar war drum to break his spatial mystique. A smug sneer appeared on Ouyang Changkong's face as he said, "Without your spatial mystique, let's see how you're going to block my massacre. Kill, heavenly judgment." Howling ultimate Emperor celestial force exploded from Ouyang Changkong's body, forming 12 imperial divine swords. They formed a peculiar sword formation that furiously attacked Yi Fei. Manifest. Of course, Ouyang Changkong knew that Yi Fei used swords. At this time, he had purposely transformed the ultimate Emperor celestial force into swords. He wanted Yi Fei to die under his imperial divine swords. He had purposely used the way of the sword to humiliate Yi Fei. As a sword cultivator, Yi Fei naturally couldn't tolerate such behavior. The anger in his heart soared, transforming into a terrifying killing intent. Killing intent surged from his body, but he didn't strike out with his sword as everyone expected. Instead, he punched out with his fists. His fists were like ancient stars, bringing with them the power to shatter the void, shattering the sharp swords formed by the extreme royal celestial astral force. Why? Yi Fei is clearly the strongest in the way of the sword. Why doesn't he use his sword? The stone house that Yi Fei was in was not far from the Xian sect. Many disciples of the Xian sect were alarmed. Autumn Phoenix Shaman was naturally no exception. She was secretly worried for Yi Fei. She had even planned to ask Shangluo, as the Xian Holy Maiden, to see if she could protect Yi Fei if the situation went wrong. However, this battle had exceeded many people's expectations from the beginning. Firstly, Ouyang Changkong was determined to take revenge on Yi Fei. Secondly, the strongest sword god in the Earth domain, Yi Fei, actually did not use his sword. "Why don't you use your sword?" Ouyang Changkong's face could not help but reveal a look of intense anger. He wanted to use the way of the sword to kill Yi Fei and humiliate Yi Fei. If Yi Fei did not use his sword, then it would be meaningless. "Why would I need to use my sword to kill you?" Yi Fei's reply shocked everyone. Who was Ouyang Changkong? He was the deputy alliance leader of the Han Alliance. He was a genius who was second only to Lu Mohan in the imperial sky. Any cultivator who faced him would feel immense pressure and would have no choice but to go all out. However, Yi Fei actually said such a thing? Many people secretly shook their heads. They felt that Yi Fei was too arrogant. No. Know your own limits. In the crowd, Zhang Heng coldly made this evaluation. Ouyang Changkong was able to become the deputy alliance leader of the Han Alliance. How could his reputation be undeserved? The moment he heard Yi Fei's words, Ouyang Changkong was completely enraged. The imperial celestial handle on his body became even more terrifying. At the same time, a terrifying aura of supremacy erupted from his body. Celestial handle destroying gods. Ouyang Changkong's celestial handle boiled and suddenly condensed into a terrifying divine spear. The whistling spear light pierced through the void and sealed Yi Fei's spatial shift. At the same time, it had already pierced towards Yi Fei's body. Yi Fei, on the other hand, wasn't afraid at all. Astral energy also surged around his body, but it wasn't the celestial astral energy. Instead, it was the unique dragon aura of the rising dragon sect. When the astral energy condensed, a terrifying divine dragon of astral energy coiled around Yi Fei's body. Then, it suddenly turned into two furious dragons that coiled around Yi Fei's arms. Not only did he shatter the celestial astral energy, he even grabbed Ouyang Changkong's divine sword with his bare hands. "You are not worthy to use your sword in front of me." Following Yi Fei's voice, the divine dragon on his arms suddenly turned into a huge dragon the size of a mountain. The dragon's head was lofty and its aura was soaring to the sky. Ouyang Changkong could only feel a vast dragon force surging toward him. His imperial celestial dipper was completely shattered by the two raging dragons, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He had come in anger, wanting to trample on Yi Fei and humiliate him to wash away the humiliation yesterday. However, not only did he not succeed, but he was also suppressed by Yi Fei. Ouyang Changkong was completely enraged. Above his head, the war drum suddenly erupted with a terrifying black light, as if a terrifying primordial beast had been awakened from its slumber. The loud roar caused the skies to shatter. It was unknown just how many weaker divine lord martial artists felt their eardrums rupture, their faces filled with shock and horror. But Chapter 2696. The Birth of the Divine Dragon, Illuminating the Sky. This Yi Fei's fists were like the roar of a holy dragon, something that could crush all dragonfolk and crush all enemies. Ouyang Changkong's war drum was incredibly powerful, especially considering that he was proficient in music. He could transform music into a divine ability, and then unleash it through his war drum. Few people in the same cultivation level as him could stand up to him. In fact, even the weaker forefather would likely be injured. But, regretfully, Ouyang Changkong's opponent this time around was Yi Fei. Even if he didn't use a sword, Yi Fei's fists were still terrifying. When he punched out, the spectators saw Yi Fei transforming into a gigantic dragon that soared into the skies, suppressing the heavens and shattering the stars. But boom! A huge explosion was heard. Boom! Under the shocked gaze of countless Han Alliance disciples and Autumn Phoenix shamans' incredulous gaze, Yi Fei's punch shattered the sky and broke the war drum. The war drum made of unknown beast skin was instantly pierced through by Yi Fei's punch. "That's impossible. Your rising dragon fist is just a great void superpower. How could you break my war drum?" Ouyang Changkong was furious. This war drum was the Ouyang clan's treasure. It could withstand a great void supernatural power and not be destroyed. This was also the reason why Ouyang Changkong dared to use the war drum to fight Yi Fei's rising dragon fist. But, how could he know that Yi Fei was not using the rising dragon fist, but the sacred dragon fist? Even though Yi Fei had not cultivated the sacred dragon fist to the level of a Sky Emperor's supernatural power, it was not something that Ouyang Changkong's great void supernatural power could compare to. A mere war drum could not block Yi Fei's attack. It wasn't enough to shatter the war drum with a single punch. Another punch, accompanied by a heaven-shaking dragon's roar, smashed towards Ouyang Changkong's body. It felt as if the one fighting right now wasn't a person, but a noble and sacred dragon. Ouyang Changkong's eyes turned red. "Damn it, I can't lose. He's just a nameless peasant. I don't believe that I'm inferior to him. Bloodline, burn for me." The immense anger and danger made Ouyang Changkong not dare to hold back. He had already burned his bloodline. The imperial celestial handle on his body became stronger. At the same time, a huge blood axe was condensed by his bloodline. And after that, the axe split the sky and chopped towards Yi Fei's fist. It was as if Ouyang Changkong couldn't wait to chop off Yi Fei's hands. From this, it could be seen how furious Ouyang Changkong was. A victorious smiles appeared on the faces of many Frost Alliance disciples who had lost their composure. This Yi Fei fellow is quite capable. He actually managed to force the Vice Alliance master to ignite his bloodline. Unfortunately, the difference in bloodline is not something an ant like him can make up for with a divine ability. Once the Vice Alliance leader uses his bloodline, that devil called Yi Fei will definitely die. Yi Fei die. Once you're dead, I'll kill everyone related to you, whether it's your family or your women. The dignified Frost Alliance's deputy leader was forced to use his bloodline to deal with a nobody with a 10th grade bloodline. He even lost his family's treasure. The hatred in Ouyang Changkong's heart had reached its peak. At this moment, not only did he want to kill Yi Fei, but he also wanted to vent his anger on everyone related to Yi Fei. But he did not know that his words had completely touched Yi Fei's reverse scale. Originally, you and I didn't have much enmity. I didn't want to kill you. But since you've threatened me, you'll die under my fist today. Kill. Yi Fei's fist shook the heavens and earth. Ouyang Changkong's words had completely enraged him. Yi Fei did not hold back anymore. He completely displayed the power of the sacred dragon fist. At this moment, Yi Fei seemed to have transformed into a real sacred dragon, roaring in the void. Following Yi Fei's roar, a terrifying sacred dragon claw appeared in the void and slammed forward. Wu Yue and Chu Ling's expressions were instantly filled with astonishment. In the crowd, Zhang Heng's eyes were wide open in disbelief. The three of them had all practiced the ascending dragon fist before. Naturally, they knew that when the ascending dragon fist was cultivated to the limit, it could unleash a terrifying dragon seal that could destroy the opponent. However, it was impossible for someone like Yi Fei to directly transform the ascending dragon fist into a dragon claw. No, you're definitely not cultivating the rising dragon fist. The rising dragon fist doesn't have such a terrifying attack power. When he saw the terrifying dragon claw slamming down and easily shattering the blood axe formed by his bloodline, Ouyang Changkong felt a great fear for Yi Fei for the first time. It should be known that the power of his bloodline divine axe was comparable to the extreme power of a great void mystique. He had only seen one person who could destroy his blood axe so easily, and that was when Lu Mohan used the Heavenly Emperor mystique. Only yes, those who could master the Heavenly Emperor's superpower at the Divine Lord realm were all peerless geniuses with amazing bloodlines. Any one of them could suppress an era. Ouyang Changkong would never have thought that Yi Fei, who clearly had a mediocre bloodline and was several streets away from those peerless geniuses, could master the Heavenly Emperor's superpower that only peerless geniuses could master. Ouyang Changkong's face suddenly showed a deep sense of despair. His blood axe had been destroyed, and his other great void superpowers were no match for Yi Fei. Mo Fei, was he going to die here today? Why aren't you stopping? All disciples of the Han Alliance, quickly stop this demon. An abrupt voice suddenly came from the crowd. Although they did not know where it came from, this reminder still woke the disciples of the Han Alliance. After all, Ouyang Changkong was the deputy leader of the Han Alliance. If he was killed by a nameless person in public, it would be a fatal blow to the reputation of the Han Alliance. Kill. Almost instantly, several people of the Han Alliance with powerful auras joined forces to kill, wanting to save Ouyang Changkong. But even though they were fast, Chu Ling and Wu Yu's reactions were also fast. Beside Chu Ling, the little light dragon roared and suddenly turned into a holy light dragon sword, falling into Chu Ling's hand. Chu Ling swept the sword light, and a strong holy light had already torn the void, blocking the few disciples of the Han Alliance. If you want to fight my brother, you'll have to get past me first. Wu Yu stepped into the void, standing with his staff horizontally, and quickly blocked one of the Han Alliance's people. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the huge dragon claw that Yi Fei had turned into finally fell on Ouyang Changkong's body. But at this moment, A layer of dazzling armor of cold light suddenly erupted from Ouyang Changkong's body, freezing the world and the void. It actually temporarily blocked Yi Fei's holy dragon seal. Ouyang Changkong, who was in despair, suddenly had an expression of ecstasy on his face. Ha ha, Yi Fei, you're dead. You're really dead this time. Mohan, help me kill him and wash away my shame. Following Ouyang Changkong's words, a powerful young man in luxurious clothes suddenly appeared in the distant sky, surrounded by ice and snow. This young man was none other than the last peerless genius from Imperial Sky, Lu Mohan. Chapter 2697. Amidst the snow and ice, Lu Mohan's demonic figure walked out. Compared to when he was in the Chu country, Lu Mohan's aura was even stronger. It was as if he had undergone some kind of powerful transformation. Many of the warriors present felt an extreme sense of danger when they saw Lu Mohan. This was also the first time for many cultivators to see an era-suppressing genius. At this moment, just by feeling this aura, everyone felt a sense of awe in their hearts. Facing Lu Mohan's warning, facing the terrifying cold chi that filled the sky, Yi Fei didn't dare to attack and continue to kill Ouyang Changkong. Ouyang Changkong's face was filled with joy and indifference. So what if you have comprehended the Heavenly Emperor's divine ability? As long as you don't have a powerful bloodline talent, you can only kneel in front of a peerless genius like Mohan. Now, you piece of trash, hurry up and let me go. Yang Changkong's frightened expression turned into arrogance. Now that Lu Mohan had arrived, how could Yi Fei still have the guts to attack him in front of an era-suppressing genius? It would already be good if he didn't piss his pants in fear. Seeing Lu Mohan, Yi Fei's heart trembled. Back in Chu, Lu Mohan definitely didn't feel this dangerous. Without a doubt, after experiencing defeat in Chu, Lu Mohan hadn't fallen behind. Instead, he had become even stronger. But no matter how strong he was, he shouldn't have issued such a warning. In Chu, I wasn't afraid of you. Now, I'm even less afraid. Ouyang Changkong, do you know what the worst mistake you've ever made is? You shouldn't have used my family and women to threaten me. Facing Lu Mohan's arrival, Yi Fei responded. He didn't have any intention of stopping. The huge sacred dragon claw slammed down with full force. Not only did it disperse the cold chi that filled the sky, it even shattered Lu Mohan's ice armor. Under the ice armor, Ouyang Changkong's eyes widened in shock as he watched the dragon claw tear his body apart. Pung! A terrifying explosion of blood appeared between heaven and earth. 1. A peerless genius, the Han Alliance's deputy alliance master, Ouyang Changkong, had been killed by a single claw in front of countless cultivators. The world couldn't help but become even colder. It was as if a cold wind was howling. Many cultivators stared at Yi Fei in disbelief. It had to be known that the one who had issued the warning just now was Lu Mohan, a peerless genius who could suppress an era, the Han Alliance's alliance master Lu Mohan. No one in the entire Great Void City would dare defy the words of such a peerless genius. Even other peerless geniuses would have to think twice. However, not only did Yi Fei not have any scruples, but he had also used his own actions to give Lu Mohan a hard slap in the face in front of countless people. Fei had ignored the warning and killed Ouyang Changkong on the spot. This Yi Fei must be crazy. What ability does he have that he dares to provoke Lu Mohan? This is going to be a good show. Ouyang Changkong was not only the Han Alliance's deputy alliance master, but also Lu Mohan's best friend. Now that his best friend has been killed in front of countless people, this matter is going to blow up. In an instant, countless gazes were focused on Lu Mohan. The disciples of the Han Alliance also looked at Lu Mohan with astonished gazes. However, they saw that Lu Mohan's face was not sad at all because of Ouyang Changkong's death. He was just angry that Yi Fei had dared to ignore his words and challenge his bottom line again and again. You're finished. These 3 words revealed Lu Mohan's murderous intent and anger. Suddenly, the cold chi that filled the sky turned into a cold wind. The cold wind then formed thousands of cold blades that tore through the void and shattered the firmament. Suddenly, they slashed at Yi Fei from all directions. Kill, dragon roaming the world! Yi Fei's fists shone with the terrifying light of the sacred dragon. He didn't regret killing Ouyang Chongkong because he wouldn't tolerate anyone threatening his family. Similarly, he didn't fear Lu Mohan because, like Lu Mohan, he also had an undefeatable heart. Even if his bloodline wasn't as good as his opponent's, his fighting spirit would never be defeated. Roar! Sensing Yi Fei's fighting spirit, the sacred dragon's eye in Yi Fei's body emitted a strange black and white light. Not only did it strengthen the power of Yi Fei's sacred dragon fists, but it also further suppressed the Void Serpent's consciousness. The Void Serpent's cold triangular eyes suddenly revealed a violent look. Damn it, don't go up. You won't be a match for him. Boom. The world suddenly trembled slightly. Upon closer inspection, it was actually Lu Mohan's body that had ignited a towering bloodline flame. As the bloodline power erupted, Lu Mohan's cold blades became even more terrifying. This was the result of Lu Mohan's seclusion during this period. He could actually use the power of his bloodline to strengthen his heavenly Dharch mystic powers. If Yi Fei had relied on his comprehension ability to unleash a portion of the celestial Thearka's mystic power, then LV Mohan would be able to raise this power to another level with the help of his powerful bloodline. Under the onslaught of cold blades, Yi Fei immediately felt the sacred dragon claw he had condensed being shattered by the cold blade. The blades then furiously slashed towards him. Before they even got close, Yi Fei already felt an extremely terrifying cold chi, as if it wanted to completely freeze his bloodline and spirit. Within the sacred dragon's eye, the Void Serpent was already roaring violently. It wasn't concerned about Yi Fei's life or death. Instead, it was born from Yi Fei's bloodline. Therefore, if Yi Fei died, it would also die prematurely and lose the opportunity to transform into a true Void Serpent. You're so noisy. However, a loud roar suppressed the Void Serpent's roar. It was Yi Fei's angry roar. In the face of this cold blade that could easily tear apart the sacred dragon's claw, Yi Fei had to admit that there was still a huge gap between him and an era-suppressing elite like Lu Mohan. The weakness of his bloodline meant that he couldn't use his bloodline to strengthen his mystic powers like Lu Mohan. However, this didn't mean that Yi Fei couldn't retaliate and could only stand there and wait for death. As the howling cold blades slashed towards him, a pitch-black soul cauldron suddenly appeared in Yi Fei's hands. This was the divine ghost cauldron that Yi Fei hadn't used for a long time. When he took it out, the entire divine ghost cauldron shook violently due to its excitement. Divine ghost cauldron, suppress. Yi Fei roared as he raised the divine ghost cauldron with both hands. Then, like an overlord lifting a cauldron, he smashed the divine ghost cauldron violently. It collided violently with the howling cold blades. See. Chapter 2698. Thousands of cold sabers formed a terrifying ice and snow that slaughtered everything in its path. Yi Fei was shocked to see that the ghostly deity cauldron, which could easily kill the forefather, actually let out a violent rumble when facing Lu Mohan. Clang, clang, clang. The divine cauldron trembled. No matter how Yi Fei activated his bloodline and dark force, the ghostly deity cauldron gradually showed signs of being unable to withstand the terrifying icy blades. Lu Mohan revealed a sinister smile. Back then, in the Chu country, you should have been a dead man. Letting you live for so long is already letting you off easy. Break. Boom. Following Lu Mohan's voice, the icy light that filled the sky suddenly condensed into a blade. It was as if the heavens were angry and wanted to judge all living things. This was the heavenly emperor mystique that the heavens had mastered, the heavenly judgment. When Lu Mohan used this mystique, it gave people the feeling that Lu Mohan was a demon that stood between heaven and earth and could easily crush all living things. But what was even more shocking was that the ghostly deity cauldron did not shatter. It was not that it did not shatter, but that Yi Fei had suddenly merged with the ghostly deity cauldron. He did not retreat in the face of Lu Mohan's strength. Instead, he suddenly stepped on the soul cauldron and opened the ghostly deity door. At the same time, a layer of purple-gold flames burned on Yi Fei's body. That was the ancient god Golden Body, Yi Fei's strongest defensive move. At this moment, Yi Fei had merged it with the ghostly deity cauldron to form a combined defense. The ghostly deity cauldron and the purple-gold Tai Chi exploded with dazzling light at the same time. This light collided with Lu Mohan's icy blade once again. There was a terrifying explosion that caused the void to shatter. Everyone saw that Lu Mohan's icy blade had shattered the void, but it still could not kill Yi Fei instantly. Yi Mo's defensive ability is so strong. His cauldron and golden body are not ordinary items. What's even scarier is that he has a black pot that is transformed from a Dragon Emperor weapon. Its defense is shockingly strong. Even LV Mohan's Heavenly Emperor's superpower, which had been enhanced by burning his bloodline, could not kill Yi Fei in one blow. LV Mohan's face was instantly filled with rage. Back in Chu country, he had let Yi Fei escape once, which was a great humiliation. If he could not kill Yi Fei now, he, as a peerless genius, would definitely be criticized. Die. The crimson flames on Lu Mohan's body became even more terrifying. Many of the martial artists who were watching were terrified. Yi Fei was also shocked. It turned out that Lu Mohan had not used his full strength when he was fighting with him. He seemed to be able to use the Heavenly Emperor's superpower to a greater extent. On the other hand, in order to block LV Mohan's cold blade, Yi Fei had already exhausted all his means. Even if he used Heavenly Emperor's regrets, he might not be a match for LV Mohan. Although he was unwilling to admit it, Yi Fei helplessly discovered that the difference in bloodline had a great impact on his combat strength. Currently, I can kill an ordinary genius like Ouyang Chongkong. However, there is still a certain gap between me and an era-suppressing genius. If I continue to fight, it will be disadvantageous for me. Yi Fei's mind worked quickly. Suddenly, while blocking the cold blade, he activated his Eye of Space. Suddenly, a golden light flashed from his body. In an instant, LV Mohan's movements became stiff. At the same time, huge azure dragon wings suddenly spread out from Yi Fei's back. Even though the space was sealed by the disciples of the Han Alliance, and he could not use spatial diversion, Yi Fei's speed was not greatly affected. Almost in the blink of an eye, Yi Fei rushed in front of Chu Ling and Wu Yue. The three of us will join forces and destroy the Han Alliance's defense. All right. Chu Ling did not hesitate. Just as Yi Fei spoke, the sacred light dragon sword in her hand had already exploded with a shocking sword light and slashed forward. Wu Yue seemed to have been waiting for this moment. The dragon staff in his hand suddenly became bigger and longer. It swept fiercely in one direction with the force of 1,000 soldiers. Instantly, countless disciples of the Han Alliance cursed angrily. However, when Yi Fei and the other two joined forces, not a single disciple of the Han Alliance dared to take the risk to stop them. After all, the Han Alliance was only a loose alliance formed to enter the Great Void. Naturally, these disciples of the Han Alliance would not die for LV Mohan. All of this seemed to take a long time to describe, but it actually happened in the time it took to take a breath. Yi Fei had already locked onto LV Mohan's figure through the Eye of Space. At the same time, he, Wu Yue and Chu Ling instantly broke through the encirclement of the Han Alliance disciples. The three of them rushed out like lightning. Boom! It was also at this moment that LV Mohan's body completely broke free from the strange stagnation of space. His eyes were filled with rage and murderous intent. However, before he could rush forward, suddenly, a strange sound of a guqin appeared between heaven and earth. The sound of the guqin seemed to be able to attract everyone's attention. Even LV Mohan could not help but be attracted. He could not help but glance in the direction of the sound of the guqin and fall into a momentary daze. Yi Fei was also a little surprised. This sound of the guqin clearly belonged to the Xiantian Holy Lady, who was also Shangluo. Moreover, the power of this sound of the guqin seemed to envelop everyone, but it only fell on him. Only Yi Fei and the other two were able to remain clear-headed. It's Shangluo. She is using this sound of the guqin to disturb LV Mohan. Yi Fei thought to himself. The confidence in his heart immediately grew. The instant he rushed out of the encirclement, his hands grabbed Wuyue and Chu Ling at the same time and started to move through space. This was also the first time Yi Fei carried someone through space. Moreover, he was carrying two people at the same time. When he started to move through space, he immediately felt a tearing pain in his body and spirit. Wuyue and Chu Ling also looked at Yi Fei nervously. Yi Fei, why don't you just ignore me and leave with Wuyue? Although Chu Ling's expression was nervous, she was not afraid. After all, she was the personal disciple of the Rising Dragon Sex Zhang Lang. No matter how angry LV Mohan was, he would not easily kill her and trigger a war between Imperial Sky and the Rising Dragon sect. However, Yi Fei and Wuyue were different. The two of them were ordinary disciples of the Rising Dragon sect. Even if they were killed by LV Mohan in front of everyone, the Rising Dragon sect would not start a war with Imperial Sky over two ordinary disciples. Chu Ling also knew this, which was why she proposed to stay behind alone. However, when he heard this, Yi Fei shook his head decisively without even thinking about it. I don't have the habit of abandoning my friends and escaping alone. That's right. If we leave together. If we stay together. At worst, the three of us will fight it out with the Han Alliance. Wuyue's eyes also turned red. A trace of determination and killing intent appeared on his body. Chapter 2699. Many disciples of the Han Alliance were suddenly sent flying. The person who walked out of the crowd was a man with a crazy aura. This man had many scars on his face and exuded a ferocious aura. However, his attacks were crazy. There was a crazy will that was like a howling hurricane that swept up heaven and earth, the sun, the moon, and the stars. This person was none other than Mad Dog, who had disappeared for a long time. He was also the family Jiwang's Ji Feng. However, the current Ji Feng was much more powerful than when he was in the Crimson Moon Divine Court. There was also a strong bloodline fluctuation in his body that seemed to be able to trigger a celestial phenomenon in the void. Around, many warriors in the audience were shocked. First, the Xian Nyu sect had used guqin music to disturb Lu Mohan's mind and helped Yi Fei escape. Now, there was a crazy young man who attacked the Han Alliance and supported Yi Fei. Moreover, from the attire of this crazy young man, he seemed to be from a powerful ancient clan. Family Jiwang. Beside Ji Feng, other than the family Jiwang's Sir God experts, Yi Fei also saw two familiar faces. They were Di Fan, the innate saint, and Fu Renjie, the demon hell heavenly embryo. One of them was the strongest prodigy in the middle state of the land, while the other was a genius who dominated the north region. They were also Yi Fei's best friends. At this moment, they stood out with Ji Feng. Many disciples of the Han Alliance were shocked. Boom! The sound of the zither was suddenly interrupted by a huge, cold wind. As the strongest elite of this generation of Imperial Sky, Lu Mohan's combat strength had already reached a frightening level. Not only had he broken free from the bewitching zither sound in a short time, but he had also used the cold air to freeze the zither sound. No, when Lu Mohan broke free, the situation had already reversed. Not only did Yi Fei break out of the encirclement, but his friend had also arrived. Lu Mohan's expression immediately became even more furious and murderous. Family Jiwang, could it be that you also want to go against the Han Alliance and Imperial Sky? Feng smiled coldly as a hint of madness flashed across his eyes. If you are targeting Yi Fei, then what about going against you? These words made the family Jiwang divine lords smile bitterly. However, Ji Feng's current status in the royal family was very different. Even though they knew that it would be inappropriate to offend the Han Alliance and Imperial Sky, the Sir Gods who followed them still took a step forward. The leader was a half-martial ancestor. He cupped his hands politely at Lu Mohan and said, "Young Master Lu, my family has no intention of opposing you. However, this young Master Yi is a friend of our young master. If the young master wants to fight, we will definitely follow." Say. As they spoke, these family Jiwang experts all emitted intense, profound energy fluctuations. They were willing to fight to protect Yi Fei. This shocked the people of the Han Alliance once again. Chu Ling also looked at Yi Fei in surprise and said, "Among the many ancient families, the family Jiwang is the most mysterious. They rarely come into contact with the outside world. Yi Fei, how do you know the family Jiwang's young master?" "Haha, it's a long story. However, brother Ji Feng, Di Fan and Fu Renjie are all my brothers. With them around, I don't have to worry." What Yi Fei was most worried about was not his own safety. After all, he had the space diversion and could leave whenever he wanted. Even Lu Mohan could not stop him. However, Chu Ling and Wu Yue were different. They did not have his speed advantage. Once they were delayed, they would definitely fall into a tough battle. However, the appearance of the family Jiwang made him feel more at ease. At least, the family Jiwang was also an ancient family and Ji Feng was the young master. He could take care of Wu Yue and Chu Ling, brother Ji Feng. This is a private matter between Lu Mohan and me. You just have to help me protect these two friends of mine." Yi Fei signaled to Ji Feng and then pointed at Chu Ling and Wu Yue. Ji Feng nodded and then shook his head solemnly. "Yi Fei, just call me Mad Dog. I once swore that I would follow you in this life. I will not go back on my words. If anyone wants to deal with you, they will have to step over my dead body." Boom! As he spoke, Ji Feng's expression wasn't just serious, it also faintly revealed a hint of a mad dog. This was a man who would be stubborn to the end once he set his mind on something. Unfortunately, Ji Feng's stubbornness was also the biggest headache for the Ji royal family. Many of the disciples of the Han Alliance were shocked. They never thought that a nobody like Yi Fei would be followed by the family Jiwang's young master. The difference in status between the two was too big. Even Lu Mohan was shocked by Ji Feng's words. However, the murderous aura on his body did not disappear. After all, although the royal Ji family was powerful, they were still lacking compared to the imperial sky behind him. Even if the royal Ji family interfered, they would not be able to stop his murderous intent. "Family Jiwang, do you think that you can stop the Han Alliance's revenge with so few people? This person killed the Han Alliance's deputy chief in front of me." Lu Mohan pointed at Yi Fei coldly. Yi Fei looked at Lu Mohan without backing down and said coldly, "He deserved to die." At that time, not only did Ouyang Chongkong want to kill him, but he also spoke arrogantly and threatened his family. If he did not kill him, how could Yi Fei's anger be appeased? While hearing this, Lu Mohan's murderous aura finally exploded. "Very well. Just based on these few words of yours, not to mention the family Jiwang, even if the 10 great ancient clans protect you together, you will not be able to survive today." 10 great ancient clans? Lu Mohan, you talk big. Do you know me, Duanmu Kai? Suddenly, in the distant sky, a powerful young man who was not any weaker than Lu Mohan walked over. Beside Yi Fei, Wu Yu's expression changed. "Duanmu Kai, the supreme genius of the 10 great ancient clans. Why is he here?" Yi asked. Yi Fei also looked at Di Fan and Fu Renjie, who were walking over in confusion. However, the two of them smiled bitterly and explained, "According to Ji Feng's grandfather, this trip to the Great Void is unusual. Therefore, the 10 great ancient clans have formed their own alliances. The leader of the family Jiwang's alliance is the supreme genius Duanmu Kai. Duanmu Kai appeared calmly. With one step, he appeared 10 steps away from Lu Mohan. He cupped his hands and said, "Lu Mohan, give me some face today and let this person go. After all, I was able to form the ancient alliance because of the family Jiwang's support." Lu Mohan's expression changed. He could disregard the Ji royal family, but he had to be careful when dealing with Duanmu Kai, who was also a peerless prodigy. After hesitating for a while, he spoke coldly. He glanced at Yi Fei and said, "All right, I will give you face. However, he killed my deputy alliance leader. I can hold myself back from killing him in the city, but he will definitely not be able to walk out of the Great Void alive." Although the Han alliance was powerful, there were also many factions that wanted to overthrow the Han alliance. Although Lu Mohan was furious, he was not stupid enough to let the ancient alliance suffer heavy losses and benefit the other factions. Chapter 2700. Upon hearing this, Di Fan and Fu Renjie's expressions changed. Ji Feng also looked displeased. Just as he was about to speak, Yi Fei shot him a look. After all, Ji Feng had already helped him a lot. This time, he had even invited Duanmu Kai. If this continued, it would put Ji Feng and the family Jiwang in a difficult position. Until Yi Fei didn't mind Duanmu Kai's disregard for him. After all, there was indeed a gap between him and the peerless geniuses. Plus, the grudge between him and Lu Mohan wasn't something a mere Duanmu Kai could resolve. However, it won't be long before I catch up with these peerless geniuses and surpass them. After experiencing 2 confrontations with Lu Mohan, Yi Fei wasn't discouraged, even though he had been at a disadvantage. Instead, his desire to become stronger grew stronger and stronger. In the end, after a brief exchange of a few words, Duanmu Kai and Lu Mohan left together. Many people were stunned. Fu Renjie's expression also darkened. Duanmu Kai's actions are very likely to facilitate the alliance between the Ancient Alliance and the Frost Alliance. If that's the case, I will definitely leave the Ancient Alliance. Ji Feng's expression was ugly. He had asked Duanmu Kai to step in and help Yi Fei. However, Duanmu Kai had only said a few words to mediate before getting involved with Lu Mohan. This was clearly ignoring them. Even Chu Ling and Wu Yu were displeased, let alone Ji Feng. "Young master, you can't do that." The family Jiwang contributed greatly to the formation of the Ancient Alliance. We even hold the position of Deputy Alliance Master. If you leave, won't the losses be too great? The divine lords of the family Jiwang tried their best to persuade him. Some of them even glared at Yi Fei unhappily. If you hadn't provoked Lu Mohan again and again, would the young master have been implicated by you? Shut up. If you say that again, I will leave the Ancient Alliance right now. Ji Feng's expression was resolute. Yi Fei has never implicated me. On the contrary, I have always implicated him. But young master, have you thought about the losses our family Jiwang will suffer if you leave the Ancient Alliance just like that? Another divine lord from a family Jiwang spoke, hoping to change Ji Feng's mind. Ji Feng's expression changed as he was about to flare up. Yi Fei suddenly stopped him. "Brother Ji Feng, don't be angry. They're doing this for your own good. As for you, I know you blame me for implicating your family Jiwang. But how do you know that Duanmu Kai didn't do this on purpose to anger Big Brother Ji Feng and force him out of the Ancient Alliance and eliminate your family Jiwang's influence on the alliance?" The family Jiwang Divine Lord's expression changed drastically. Even though he wanted to refute Yi Fei, he thought about it carefully. Duanmu Kai's success in establishing the Ancient Alliance was all thanks to the family Jiwang's support and their help in persuading a few of the more xenophobic ancient clans. After they succeeded, Duanmu Kai had readily agreed to give Ji Feng the position of Deputy Alliance Leader. In the end, when Yi Fei had encountered danger and Ji Feng had taken the initiative to ask for help, Duanmu Kai had not only arrived late but had also brushed him off perfunctorily. He had ignored the family Jiwang and left together with Lu Mohan. The deeper meaning behind this was indeed worth pondering. I'll return to the ancient alliance and question Duanmu Kai. If he really burns the bridge after crossing it, our family Jiwang definitely won't tolerate it. Some divine lords refused to believe Yi Fei's words and turned to leave for the ancient alliance. Yi Fei didn't say anything. After all, everything he had said was just speculation. Perhaps he had made a wrong judgment? Besides, Yi Fei had another person to thank. Hence, as the Frost Alliance retreated, Yi Fei cupped his fists in the direction of the Xiannu sect and said, "Thank you, Sacred Lady, for lending a helping hand. Young Master Yi, there's no need to be so polite. I just felt something and played the guqin." In the air, Shang Luo hugged a guqin and stared at Yi Fei with incomparable calmness. Yi Fei felt somewhat melancholy. For example, the current holy maiden. He still preferred the old Shang Luo to be mischievous and mischievous, doing bad things together with him. Shang Luo? Fu Renjie and Di Fan also looked at the sky in surprise. However, before they could say anything, Yi Fei shook his head and said, "You've got the wrong person. This is the Xiantian Sacred Lady of the Xiannu sect. Sacred Lady, these are my two friends, Fu Renjie and Di Fan." Luo had a strange expression on her face. She felt a sense of familiarity when she saw the three of them standing together. She couldn't help but ask curiously, "That's strange. Have we met before?" "Definitely not. Sacred Lady, don't think too much. By the way, did the spirit melon I gave you taste good? If you like it, I have some more here." Yi Fei hurriedly interrupted. After all, Shangluo's soul had been injured by the heavens and earth. It would be very inappropriate if her memories were stimulated. Shang Luo's expression couldn't help but become more and more strange. He suddenly turned around and walked away, no longer speaking to Yi Fei. Only when his back was about to disappear did three words enter Yi Fei's ears. "It's disgusting." Hearing this, Yi Fei laughed secretly. Shangluo's personality had changed, but her taste hadn't changed. Yi Fei immediately planned to take out all the spirit melons he had and give them to the female disciple of the Xiannu sect. However, just as he stretched out his hand, Yi Fei's face darkened. But Yi Fei saw that the spirit melon that he had casually placed in his beast mark space had been completely eaten. There was also a large black tortoise that was patting its stomach and burping. Yi Fei suddenly had the urge to wake Xiao Chao up and beat up the dragon tortoise. "Why did you steal the spirit melons?" Roar! The dragon turtle raised its head in surprise and put up a sign to look at Yi Fei innocently. "Didn't you guys say that the spirit melons were too disgusting after being left out for too long? That's why it couldn't bear to waste them and ate them all?" The dragon turtle inexplicably felt wronged. Yi Fei felt like vomiting blood. He could only say to the female disciple of the Xiannu sect awkwardly, "I'm sorry. Please go back and tell the saintess that I don't have any more spirit melons for the time being. I'll send some to her later." After that, Yi Fei felt even more ashamed. He couldn't stay in the Xiannu sect any longer. He hurriedly ran out to catch up with Fu Renjie, Di Fan, and the others. This time, not only Fu Renjie and Di Fan came, but also Bai Shizhong and Bai Yanran. However, they were currently in seclusion to digest the opportunities they had obtained from the ancient sect ruins. It was only then that Fei found out that when he left Red Moon Holy Court, Di Fan and the others had met up and entered the ancient sect ruins that Di Fan had discovered. They had encountered many fortuitous encounters and had broken through to the Divine Lord realm one after another. Clang. However, there were some things that Yi Fei didn't know. For example, when Yi Fei left the Xiannu sect speechlessly, he didn't know that there was a certain saintess in the Xiannu sect who was eagerly waiting for someone to present the spirit melons to her. However, after waiting for a long time, the spirit melons were still not presented. Shangluo was instantly angry and hurriedly asked the disciples of the Xian new sect to inquire. Only then did she know that Yi Fei had left directly without giving anything. Chapter 2701. Zhang Heng, what did you say? This time, Yi Fei actually didn't die at Lu Mohan's hands and escaped a calamity? In the Sky Alliance's encampment, Zhang Wangu's face was ashen. However, due to the Rising Dragon sect's rule of not killing fellow disciples, Zhang Wangu couldn't bring himself to look for Yi Fei to settle the score. However, when he learned that Yi Fei had escaped danger again, Zhang Wangu felt very uncomfortable. It wasn't until Zhang Heng told him that Lu Mohan had already said that Yi Fei definitely wouldn't survive that did Zhang Wangu feel a little better. Zhang Wangu, immediately bring these precious gifts to the Frost Alliance and ask to see Lu Mohan. You might as well tell him directly that I hate Yi Fei. Ignoring the fact that Yi Fei had been personally escorted back to the sect, Zhang Wangu couldn't tolerate the fact that Chu Ling had a close relationship with Yi Fei. After all, Zhang Wangu had always been pursuing Chu Ling's heart and then using his relationship with Chu Ling to become the next sect master of the Rising Dragon sect. Haha, don't worry, Alliance Master. This time, I guarantee that I'll get things done properly. Zhang Heng's hatred for Yi Fei was even deeper than Zhang Wangu's. He immediately took a few precious gifts and rushed to the Frost Alliance's encampment under the cover of the night. However, as he walked, Zhang Heng suddenly realized that something was wrong. Behind him, there was a figure with its head lowered, silently following him. Moreover, there were fewer and fewer martialists around him. Suddenly, Zhang Heng seemed to understand something. He began to speed up, trying to rush out of this remote alley. However, no matter how fast he was, the black figure behind him was even faster. Almost at the instant Zhang Heng sped up, the black figure suddenly disappeared from its original spot and abruptly blocked Zhang Heng's path. It's you! Zhang Heng screamed in horror because the figure was wearing a black purple-gold robe. It was obviously Yi Fei's usual attire. Zhang Heng immediately shouted in shock and anger, Yi Fei, what are you doing? I'm also a disciple of the Rising Dragon sect. If you attack me, senior brother Wangu, roar! The black figure actually let out a fierce roar. Suddenly, a terrifying purple-gold fist smashed towards Zhang Heng. Zhang Heng was scared out of his wits. Almost instinctively, he shouted in the direction of the Sky Alliance's direction, Senior Brother Wangu, save, bang! This punch caused Heng's head to explode. The Heavenly Palace and the Celestial Court collapsed instantly. However, this place was not far from the Heavenly Alliance. Heng's howl still alerted Zhang Wangu. Zhang Wangu extended his spiritual consciousness. Unfortunately, it was too late. All Zhang Wangu saw was a headless corpse and a flash of purple-gold light. Zhang Heng. In the Heaven Alliance, Zhang Wangu's eyes turned red. Zhang Heng was not only his right-hand man, but he was also from the same clan as Zhang Wangu. Zhang Heng had entered the Rising Dragon sect together with Zhang Wangu and had done many shady things for Zhang Wangu. It could be said that Zhang Wangu had long regarded Zhang Heng as a part of his body. However, Zhang Heng had been killed right outside the Sky Alliance's encampment. Zhang Wangu's anger was imaginable, especially when he saw the purple-gold figure that flashed by. It immediately reminded Zhang Wangu of a person. Yi Fei, it must be him. He must have killed Zhang Heng. You damned ant! Do you think you can take revenge on me by doing this? You will only die faster. Boom! Zhang Wangu's body suddenly surged with killing intent. Although the Rising Dragon sect forbade disciples from killing each other, since Yi Fei had taken the initiative to kill Zhang Heng, Zhang Wangu did not need to abide by this rule anymore. Almost at the same time as Zhang Heng's death, Zhang Wangu's fury surged as he charged towards the stone house where Yi Fei was. At the same time, Yi Fei was still drinking with Bai Shizhong, Di Fan and the others, recounting their experiences. Faced with this sudden killing intent, not only was Yi Fei stunned, but Chu Ling and Wu Yu were also shocked. What's going on? Is Lu Mohan going back on his words and coming to kill Yi Fei now? That shouldn't be possible. The Ancient Alliance sent news that Lu Mohan and Wanmu Kai should still be discussing the matter of joining forces in the Great Void. Ji Feng shook his head. Although he had left the Ancient Alliance, his family Jiwang's influence in the Ancient Alliance was still there. They could know Lu Mohan and Wanmu Kai's movements in advance. However, if it wasn't Lu Mohan, then who could it be? Even Yi Fei was a little confused. Chu Ling, who was standing beside Bai Yanran, suddenly thought of something and exclaimed, "No, this seems to be Senior Brother Wangu's aura. Yi Fei, you traitor of the sect. Come out and die." Zhang Wangu didn't hide his aura at all outside the stone house. In order to let others know that he didn't kill Yi Fei out of jealousy but to avenge Zhang Heng, Zhang Wangu's voice was especially loud. Almost all the areas of the small factions were alarmed. Shangluo, who was angry at the Xiannu sect, was also alarmed. When he heard that it was Zhang Wangu who had come to kill Yi Fei, Shangluo's expression became extremely strange. Strange, why is this guy like a jinx? Other warriors might not even be able to provoke a peerless genius in their entire lives, but this guy actually provoked 3 of them every few days. Inside the stone house, Yi Fei was also very puzzled. He didn't seem to have any deep grudges with Zhang Wangu. They were even fellow disciples. Why would Zhang Wangu suddenly come to kill him and even ask for his death? However, Yi Fei's expression turned cold when he encountered such a troublesome matter after reuniting with an old friend. He immediately walked out of the stone house and looked at Zhang Wangu, who was walking over from the void. "Zhang Wangu, since we are fellow disciples, I'll call you Senior Brother. I just refuse to join your Sky Alliance. Why do you have to kill me?" "Demon, don't talk nonsense. For trash like you, even if you kneel down and beg, I won't let you join the Sky Alliance. It must be because I refused to let you join the Sky Alliance. You hold a grudge against me, so you took advantage of the night to kill Zhang Heng. Today, I'll eliminate you, the traitor demon, on behalf of the sect." Boom! As he spoke, Zhang Wangu's body emitted the most terrifying killing intent. He was about to rush down and kill Yi Fei at any time. However, when they heard this, Yi Fei, Chu Ling, and Wu Yu were all stunned. Chu Ling looked at Zhang Wangu with disappointment and said, "Senior Brother Wangu, you disappoint me. Yi Fei has been drinking and chatting with us the whole day. How could he have time to kill Zhang Heng? I, Chu Ling, can swear a blood oath. My family Jiwang can also prove it." Ji Feng also spoke. Then, Di Fan and Fu Renjie stepped forward at the same time. "We can also prove it." "What? Zhang Heng is dead? Zhang Wangu, I'll have to trouble you to frame me. Can you at least show some sincerity? Who in the Rising Dragon sect doesn't know that Zhang Heng is your most capable dog? Would you be willing to let Zhang Heng die, just to frame Yi Fei?" Hearing this, Zhang Wangu didn't say anything. He clapped his hands and a bloody body fell in front of Wu Yu. At the same time, there was a complete dragon corpse next to the body. It was Zhang Heng's battle pet. Chapter 2702. Zhang Heng was really dead, and the way he died was by a punch to the head. It was no wonder that Zhang Wangu would be so furious. After all, Zhang Heng was his right-hand man. Now that he was dead, it was not only a provocation to the Sky Alliance, but also to Zhang Wangu himself. How could Zhang Wangu not be angry? "Yemo, I want to see him if he's alive, and I want to see his corpse if he's dead. Now Zhang Heng's corpse is here. My consciousness saw it with my own eyes. It was a purple gold figure that killed Zhang Heng. That figure was wearing the same clothes as you. However, I didn't expect that you would not dare to admit that you killed someone. You even colluded with junior sister Chu Ling and the family Jiwang to protect you. At this point, Zhang Wangu's killing intent became even more violent. The killing intent emitted by a peerless genius even made the void much colder. After taking a deep look at Zhang Heng's corpse, Yi Fei did not say anything. He just took a big step forward and looked at Zhang Wangu coldly. If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. Zhang Wangu, if you want to fight, I'll fight. However, Zhang Heng, I really didn't kill him. How dare you? You ant, do you think that my consciousness will see wrongly? Boom! A terrifying dragon roar resounded in the air. Behind Zhang Wangu, a gigantic dragon appeared. That dragon then transformed into a terrifying dragon god's spear. It landed in Zhang Wangu's hand and pierced towards Yi Fei mercilessly. Wu Yue and the others' faces changed. Yi Fei's nerves were also tense. This was the second peerless genius that he had faced. However, there was still a certain gap between him and a peerless genius of this level. If Zhang Wangu had the same means as Lu Mohan, he might not be a match for him. However, not being a match for him did not mean that Yi Fei would shrink back. Especially at this moment, he was being framed by others. Ding! Who? However, the sound of a zither came from the void and calmed Zhang Wangu's anger. It also stopped the fight. The one who attacked was still Shangluo. This made Zhang Wangu's face extremely ugly. Xian Tian Saintus, the Sky Alliance and the Xian Nu sect have no grudges. Why are you stopping me? If you want to fight, you can fight somewhere else. This is the encampment of the Xian Nu sect, not your battlefield. Moreover, Zhang Wangu, you might have been used by someone. Although I don't know how Heng died, he was definitely not killed by Yi Fei. This is because Yi Fei has been in the stone house for the whole day and did not go out. This is not only proven by the Xian Nu sect, but also by the members of the Sky Alliance. As he spoke, Shang Luo's hand suddenly pointed at a person in the crowd. That person had originally mixed in with the crowd to watch the commotion, but he didn't expect that Shang Luo would actually call out his identity. His expression immediately changed, but before he could leave, a charming voice suddenly entered his ears. "Little brother, can I trouble you to tell us why you've been loitering around this area? How long have you been here? What have you seen?" The Sky Alliance's disciple looked at Shangluo in a daze and replied subconsciously, "Saintus, please don't misunderstand. I am a member of the Sky Alliance. Just like Heng, I was ordered by the Alliance leader to spy on Yi Fei. Moreover, I have been secretly following Yi Fei ever since he entered this area." "Then did you see Yi Fei leave?" Shangluo continued to ask. The disciple shook his head blankly and said, "No, Yi Fei did not leave." "Then why did Zhang Wangu send you to spy on Yi Fei?" This time, it was Chu Ling who asked the question. As the disciple was still under the spell of Shangluo's music, he continued to answer, "According to Heng, the Alliance leader wanted to use enough." Before the disciple could finish his sentence, Zhang Wangu could no longer listen to him. There was an obvious flash of panic in his eyes. He did not expect that Shangluo would help Yi Fei so much, and almost revealed his secret against Yi Fei. Zhang Wangu immediately gave up on killing Yi Fei. The powerful dragon behind him rushed to the Sky Alliance's disciple's side and swatted him with its tail. The disciple spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted on the spot. Zhang Wangu lifted him up and flew into the sky again. "Junior brother Yi, I was rash today. I will apologize to you when I have time." Zhang Wangu turned around and left without looking back. His heart was filled with anger and grievance. He had come in a rage and wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to kill Yi Fei and avenge Heng. However, in the end, not only had he been schemed against, but he had also almost made a fool of himself in front of everyone. Zhang Wangu's anger was enough to set the sky on fire. Many martialists also looked at Yi Fei in shock. This was already the third peerless genius who had come to their small faction's area. Moreover, all of them had come for the same person. It had to be said that Yi Fei was really evil. Yi Fei's heart could only be described as gloomy. Then, he thought of something and looked at Zhang Wangu's back as he left. A cold glint flashed across his eyes. He sent someone to follow me from the moment I entered this area. What is this Zhang Wangu trying to do? Yi Fei, I have a suspicion that Zhang Wangu's shadow is behind our conflict with the Frost Alliance. Wu Yu's expression was very serious. After all, Yi Fei had clashed with the Han Alliance twice, and Wu Yu had discovered that Zhang Heng was there to watch. He even had a gloating expression on his face. Moreover, when Zhang Heng was killed, Zhang Wangu did not even think about it. He was certain that Yi Fei was the one who did it. Wu Yu, the more he reminded, the colder Yi Fei's expression became. Only Chu Ling still didn't dare to believe it. It can't be. Our Rising Dragon sect strictly forbids internal strife. Why would senior brother Wangu target Yi Fei? Stupid girl, isn't it because of you? With such a beautiful fairy beside him, if it were me, I would also want to snatch him away. It would be best if I could press someone to the ground and trample him to death. After eating the spiritual melon, Shanglua's resentment was very deep. As soon as he came up, he fanned the flames. Chu Ling blushed and quickly distanced herself from Yi Fei. Even Bai Yanran looked at Yi Fei with a strange expression. Yi Fei's expression was incomparably dark. He couldn't help but glare at Shanglu. What, one spiritual melon isn't enough. Do you want another one? Bring it on. I'm not afraid of you. Shanglu almost instinctively glared back. There was even a hint of anticipation on his face. The female disciples of the Xian Nu sect who came along were dumbfounded. At this moment, Shanglu reacted abruptly. She had only met Yi Fei and the others twice. How could they become so familiar with each other so naturally? She almost forgot the demeanor of a saintess. It was as if she was flirting with Yi Fei. Shanglua's expression suddenly turned cold. He couldn't be bothered to look at Yi Fei again. He elegantly hugged his zither and turned to leave. Only when he passed by Yi Fei, the elegant saintess of the Xian Nu sect stepped on Yi Fei's foot. Yi Fei couldn't help but gasp. This. Even though Shang Luo's memories had been suppressed, his profiteering nature that would rather die than suffer a loss had not changed at all. Chapter 2703. Yi Fei couldn't figure it out, and Zhang Wangu couldn't either. However, not only was Zhang Heng a member of the Sky Alliance, but he was also Zhang Wangu's right-hand man. Regardless of whether he was the leader of the Sky Alliance or the eldest senior brother of the Dragon Rising sect, Zhang Wangu had to express his stance on Zhang Heng's death. After discovering that Yi Fei wasn't the murderer, Zhang Wangu quickly turned his suspicions to Lu Mohan of the Han Alliance. After all, he was the one who had framed Yi Fei first and deliberately sent Zhang Heng to the Han Alliance to reveal information about Yi Fei. In the end, Ouyang Chongkong had been killed. It was possible that Lu Mohan would vent his anger on the Sky Alliance. Because Zhang Wangu had also personally gone to the Han Alliance to demand an explanation. His battle with Lu Mohan had caused a sensation in the entire Great Void City. After all, this was the first time that exceptional geniuses had killed each other before entering the Great Void. Furthermore, this battle had ended with Zhang Wangu's crushing defeat. Besides Lu Mohan, Duanmu Kai had also dealt with Zhang Wangu. Not only had the two of them formed a certain degree of alliance, but what made Zhang Wangu feel even more aggrieved was that Duanmu Kai had only come out to testify when they had completely suppressed him. When Zhang Heng died, the disciples of the Ancient Alliance and the Han Alliance had actually gathered together. Many princes of the Ancient Alliance had also been invited. Lu Mohan even told Zhang Wangu in an extremely cold and arrogant manner that if he wanted to kill Yi Fei, he wouldn't have needed to use such a method of framing Yi Fei. After all, he could kill 10 Yi-Feis with one hand. These words swept through the entire Great Void City like a hurricane. While people were shocked by Lu Mohan's strength, they couldn't help but feel deep sympathy for Yi-Fei, who had provoked Lu Mohan. A nameless person who thought that he had some talent had provoked an exceptional genius who stood at the top of this era. If this wasn't courting death, what was it? Therefore, many people believed that Yi-Fei's fate was already sealed even before he stepped into the land of the Great Void. He would either die at the hands of LV Mohan or die at the hands of those who wanted to befriend LV Mohan. It seems like Yi-Fei's chances of surviving in the Great Void are slim. By the way, Granny Ying, how did Yi-Fei react when he heard the news? Shangluo asked curiously in the Xian Nu sect. Beside her stood an old woman with wrinkled skin and white hair. She looked gloomy, but Shangluo trusted her very much. However, when she heard Shangluo ask about Yi-Fei's recent situation, a strange expression appeared on the old woman's face. She shook her head and said, "Your Highness Saintess, this kid is very calm because he has been cultivating in the stone house and has never come out." "What? He's still in the mood to cultivate at a time like this?" Shangluo's expression became increasingly strange. He suddenly felt very speechless towards Yi-Fei. Sure. Outside the house, Wu Yue and Chu Ling were also speechless. However, Di Fan and Fu Renjie were used to it. Bai Shizhong solemnly reminded Bai Yanran, "Sister, see, I was right. This Yi-Fei is a scourge. Every time he goes, people will want to kill him. We must not get close to him." "Brother, since you don't want to get close to Yi-Fei, why are you still staying here? You can leave." Bai Yanran was very puzzled. Bai Shizhong's expression suddenly turned cold. "No, I can't leave. If I stay here and that scourge dares to provoke you, I promise I will kill him with my sword." As he spoke, Bai Shizhong actually took out a shiny battle sword, which attracted everyone's attention. In the stone house, Yi-Fei had just finished cultivating and was about to go out to greet everyone when he suddenly heard this. He decided to behave himself and continue cultivating in the house. He did not want Bai Shizhong to keep thinking that he was going to provoke his sister. Besides, even if he was going to provoke her, it would be Bai Yanran who was provoking him. The more Yi-Fei thought about it, the more unhappy he became. He immediately immersed himself in comprehending the sacred dragon fist and Heavenly Emperor's regret. These two were the Heavenly Emperor's mystiques that Yi-Fei had mastered. Since he was limited by his bloodline, he could not unleash the full power of the Heavenly Emperor's mystiques like Lu Mohan. Therefore, he could only try to use the two Heavenly Emperor's mystiques at the same time. This way, even if he entered the Great Void, he would have a way to deal with Lu Mohan's provocations. Therefore, in the following period of time, Yi-Fei did not step out of his house at all. He devoted all his energy into his cultivation. During this period of time, more and more powerful geniuses were rushing over from all over the place. 1 month before the opening of the Great Void, a carriage pulled by 8 dragons came from the void. On the carriage sat a luxurious figure in a dragon robe, which caused many people to exclaim in surprise. At the same time, in the land of the Great Void, there was a bloodied man carrying the huge corpses of the vicious beasts of the Great Void. This attracted the attention of legendary geniuses like Duan Mukai. After a long time, there was a white-haired youth who rode a mighty white tiger and stepped into the city alone. Following behind, there was a large group of youths who carried bows and swords and smiled proudly. One day, a luxuriously decorated armored warship dragged a blazing sun into the city. Within the sun, there was a handsome man sitting cross-legged, attracting the attention of countless people. These were the strongest geniuses of the 9 major sects of the Heaven Realm. Except for the Xiantian Saintess of the Xian Nu sect, any one of the other geniuses could suppress an era. Others of the same generation could only look up to them in despair. However, this time, a total of 8 of them appeared, which attracted many shocked gazes. With the appearance of these legendary geniuses, Zhang Heng's death and the conflict between the Han Alliance and the Heaven Alliance became less important. In the end, no one paid attention to them. Now all eyes were on the 8 legendary geniuses of this generation. The land of the Great Void was a graveyard for ordinary warriors. However, for many powerful geniuses, it was the best stage for them to rise. Following, as the opening of the Great Void drew closer and closer, the atmosphere of the entire Great Void city suddenly became tense. Moreover, the gazes of all the warriors in the city were fixed on the highest array platform in the Great Void city. This was a void array platform specially prepared for entering the land of the Great Void. Through the array platform, one could enter the real land of the Great Void. Otherwise, even a divine lord would need to spend a year to reach the real land of the Great Void. Not to mention, there were countless terrifying vicious beasts of the Great Void waiting along the way. Therefore, unless one was an ancient emperor or an ancient god, there was only one way for a divine lord and Renzu to enter the land of the Great Void. That was through the void array platform set up by the sects of the sanctuary. The auspicious hour has arrived. The land of the Great Void has officially opened. Everyone can choose the array platform to enter the Great Void. When the sun above the Great Void city reached its highest point, Yi Fei saw a middle-aged ancient emperor in white walk out from the blazing sun. He raised his hand and the blazing sun behind him landed on the void array platform. Boom! Chapter 2704. The light from these bridges was extremely intense. They extended from the Great Void city into the dark depths of the Great Void. It was as if dozens of beams of intense light had shattered the darkness of the Great Void and illuminated the path into the Great Void. The Great Void was a vast expanse of nothingness. Although it was not a starry sky, it was even more dangerous than a starry sky. There were shattered heavens and earth everywhere, and there were countless black holes that could devour all light and even consciousness. Even if an ancient emperor entered, he could only see a distance of dozens of meters with his eyesight. Without these strong bridges of light, entering the Great Void would undoubtedly be a very dangerous thing to do. Moreover, these light bridges could not be opened at any time. It required the Sacred Region sect to use the power of a grand sun star to open them. Therefore, the journey into the Great Void was only held once every 100 years. Every time a young prodigy entered the Great Void and came out alive, even if they did not enter a Sacred Region sect, their future achievements were definitely not something that Renzu, who only focused on cultivation, could compare to. Yi Fei, you have to be careful. Once we step onto the light bridges, all of our treasures must be put into our space belts, and then sealed by the Sacred Region sect's array formation. Oh, and the power of our bloodlines, too. Ji Feng's expression was very serious. Although it was his first time entering the Great Void, there were many experts of the older generation in his family Jiwang who had entered the Great Void to train when they were young. Yi Fei did not know that for the ancient clans, only prodigies who had entered the Great Void and survived were considered true prodigies. They would be able to receive great nurturing from the Sacred Region sect. If their performance was outstanding and they gained the favor of the Sacred Region sect, it would be a joyous occasion for the entire clan. Ji Feng's ancient god-grandfather had entered the Great Void when he was young and had a fortuitous encounter. After hundreds of years of arduous closed-door cultivation, he had broken through to the ancient emperor and ancient god level. In the end, he returned to his family Jiwang and took control of the ancient clans in one fell swoop. However, Ji Feng's reminder still made Yi Fei's heart sink. After all, among these young prodigies, not only did his bloodline not have an advantage, but it was also relatively weaker. Therefore, he was able to suppress these prodigies because of the Divine Ghost Cauldron and the Indestructible Sword Token, both of which gave him a powerful comprehension ability. If the Divine Ghost Cauldron and the Indestructible Sword Token were sealed at the same time, then he would be in a very passive position. However, this was a rule set by the sects of the sanctuary. Even the 9 great sects couldn't go against it, let alone Yi Fei. The only thing Yi Fei could do was to constantly comfort himself. Although his strongest technique had been sealed, Lu Mohan's strongest bloodline had also been sealed. In this way, Lu Mohan could forget about using his bloodline to deal with him. When he thought of this, Yi Fei was more or less relieved. He immediately put the Divine Ghost Cauldron and the Indestructible Sword token into his spatial belt and walked towards the Void Array platform. Boom! Just as Yi Fei approached, a sudden force appeared from the Void Array platform and completely sealed Yi Fei's spatial belt. Then, the ancient god controlling the great Yang star on the Void Array platform scanned the crowd coldly. I forgot to tell you that the sects of the sanctuary have recently changed the rules. Anyone who enters the Great Void will not only be unable to use their various treasures and bloodlines, but they will also not be able to use mystiques that surpass the Great Void. This will allow you to stimulate your potential to the greatest extent under a relatively fair environment. Anyone who can leave their name on the Void Monument will also have a chance to receive an invitation from the sects of the sanctuary. The middle-aged ancient god's words caused an uproar among the young prodigies. This was especially true for prodigies like Lu Mohan. Their greatest advantage was their bloodline and heavenly emperor mystique. Now that they couldn't use either of these, and they couldn't even use their treasures, this greatly limited their abilities. May I ask your eminence if we can find a way to remove this restriction ourselves after entering the Great Void? A dignified man in a dragon robe suddenly walked out of the crowd, causing many people to exclaim softly. Even the ancient god sitting on the sun looked at the young man in the dragon robe with some admiration. You are the crown prince of the Wu Zhou ancient country, Zhou Yuding? It is said that your hurricane axe technique once killed a late-stage Renzu elite. Work hard. As long as you don't die on this trip to the Great Void, there may be a place for you in the sects of the sanctuary in the future. Of course, the rest of you don't have to be discouraged. What the sects of the sanctuary value the most is not bloodline, but a person's potential. Even if their bloodline isn't strong, but their potential is great, I will consider them appropriately. As for Zhou Yuding's question, I can tell you very clearly that in the Great Void, you can use all sorts of methods to remove the seal on your body. As for how much you can remove, that will depend on your potential and luck. After explaining all this, the ancient god on the sun closed his eyes and didn't answer any more questions. Yi Fei also let out a sigh of relief. The tests of the sects of the sanctuary are strict, but at least they leave some leeway. As long as we can remove the seal quickly, we will have the advantage and opportunity. That is true. Yi Fei, shall we go to the Dragon Rising sect now? Chu Ling and Wu Yu nodded. These light bridges into the Great Void weren't randomly used. 9 of them were fixed for the 9 great sects to use. This way, not only could they avoid conflicts, but they could also give the disciples of the 9 great sects a slight advantage. Most of the other bridges were the same. Although they weren't as powerful as the 9 great sects, they were usually controlled by 2 or 3 factions or an alliance. Regarding this, the sects of the sanctuary tacitly agreed. Since Yi Fei was also a disciple of the Dragon Rising sect, he naturally had to go to the Dragon Rising sect's light bridge. However, before Chu Ling and Wu Yu could go over, a certain disciple of the Dragon Rising sect said coldly, "Apologies, we can't walk together with this devil who killed senior apprentice brother Zhang Heng. That wretched Wu Yu also doesn't have the qualifications. Of course, if Chu Ling is willing to come over, I'm sure senior apprentice brother Wangu will agree." Of course. Chu Ling is a junior apprentice sister who grew up with me. Her matters are my matters. Junior apprentice sister Chu Ling, come over to my side. I will definitely protect you well. As for Yi Fei and Wu Yu, although the 2 of you have bad conduct and have repeatedly disregarded me, your senior apprentice brother, I Zhang Wangu, am not a petty person. Seeing that you are also members of the Dragon Rising sect, you should apologize to me in front of everyone and come over. Zhang Wangu's expression was solemn, as if he was a very reasonable person. The other factions who didn't know the situation all nodded inwardly. They felt that as a peerless genius, Zhang Wangu was truly magnanimous. As for Yi Fei and the others who knew the truth, they all sneered. Chu Ling was also completely disappointed. Zhang Wangu, I appreciate your kindness, but I will protect myself. I don't need anyone to protect me. Chapter 2705. Those who could come to the Great Void were no weaklings. Naturally, they could tell which two people Zhang Wangu was referring to. Many people looked at Yi Fei and Wu Yu as if they were watching a good show. During this period of time, the news of Ouyang Chongkong, the deputy leader of the Han Alliance, being killed had spread like wildfire. This was also the first time many people had heard of Yi Fei's name. Especially after Lu Mohan's words spread, many people secretly cast sympathetic glances at Yi Fei. He had offended two legendary geniuses at the same time before entering the Great Void. What was the difference between this and courting death? Feeling under these gazes, Yi Fei did not explain. After all, no explanation was more powerful than the sword in his hand. Lu Mohan and Zhang Wangu treated him as prey. Who knew if he also treated these two people as prey? After all, this trip to the Great Void was fair to everyone. At the very least, in the beginning, even if one was a peerless genius, without the advantage of bloodlines and treasures, he would not be too far behind the other cultivators. This is probably the reason why Lu Mohan and the others formed an alliance. They want to use the advantage of numbers to break the seal in the Great Void in advance and gain an advantage, Yi Fei thought to himself. Then, he followed the crowd and chose the nearest light bridge. This light bridge was jointly controlled by a few ancient countries and ancient clans. Since he had already fallen out with Zhang Wangu, it was the same to choose the family Jiwang's light bridge. Seeing Yi Fei's choice, Wu Yu, Bai Shizhong, and the others all followed. The most eye-catching one was Chu Ling. In the face of Zhang Wangu's invitation, not only did she reject it, but she also followed Yi Fei with Bai Yanran. These two women, one was like a lotus flower, and the other was like a burning rose. They stood on Yi Fei's left and right. No one knew if they did it on purpose or if the three of them had a special relationship. Many ancient martial art practitioners could not help but cast extremely unhappy glances at Yi Fei. They secretly hated that they were not the ones standing beside the two beauties. Zhang Wangu, who had been magnanimous just a moment ago, turned pale on the spot. He secretly clenched his fists and muttered, "Yi Fei, you'd better not meet me in the Great Void. Otherwise, I'll teach you a lesson." Humph, this Yi Fei is about to die, but he still has such beauties by his side. It's no wonder that Lu Mohan said that he would promise anyone who could kill this person in the Great Void a promise. The promise of an ordinary ancient martial art practitioner was not important, but the promise of a legendary prodigy was something that the disciples of the 9 great sects would be very happy to have. After all, having the promise of a legendary prodigy was equivalent to having the promise of a future ancient god, as long as this person did not die. How precious was that! Therefore, when they saw that Yi Fei did not enter the light bridge controlled by the Dragon Ascension sect, many forces became restless. There were even some that directly sent out a portion of their outstanding disciples to follow Yi Fei into the light bridge. Unfortunately, Yi Fei, who had already stepped onto the light bridge, was unaware of all this. After all, there were too many young martial art practitioners who wanted to enter the Great Void. It was estimated that all the young prodigies of the 9 great heavens domains had gathered here. There were at least 80,000 of them, if not 100,000. With so many people crowded on the light bridge, Yi Fei naturally did not notice anything else. Moreover, standing on the light bridge was not absolutely safe. Just as Yi Fei stood on the light bridge, he vaguely heard terrifying roars coming from both sides of the light bridge. It's the Great Void, vicious beasts. Every time a trip to the Great Void opens, these great void vicious beasts will appear and attack the light bridge to devour us. We must rush to the end of the light bridge before the large group of great void vicious beasts besiege us. At the sound of the beasts' roars, a martial art practitioner at the front of the crowd immediately shouted loudly, as if reminding everyone to be aware of the danger. In the crowd, there were indeed people who were frightened. In order not to fall behind and become food for the great void vicious beasts, they began to run wildly, trying to rush to the end of the light bridge before everyone else. Only, however, the distance of the light bridge was extremely long. It was at least a few 100,000 meters. The moment these martial art practitioners who thought that they were one step ahead and rushed to the end of the light bridge, a cold, shining hook suddenly appeared in the dark void. Like steel needles, it pierced into the bodies of these martial art practitioners, forcibly taking away their lives and devouring their blood essence. Heavens, it's the venomous void scorpions. Everyone, hurry up and charge. Don't let the scorpion stab you. In the crowd there were a few frightened cries. However, after being tricked once, very few people were foolish enough to take the initiative to charge forward. Instead, they cautiously separated from each other and released all kinds of powerful magical powers, trying their best to illuminate the surrounding void. Yi Fei also released a sword light that burned the heavens and earth like a raging inferno. He could finally see the scene outside the light bridge clearly. At some point, both sides of the light bridge were crawling with gigantic scorpions the size of mountains. They were spraying venom that corroded the light bridge's light. Once a part of the light bridge was corroded and a gap appeared, these gigantic scorpions would throw their terrifying poisonous hooks in and mercilessly hunt down the martial art practitioners on the light bridge. Only then did Yi Fei realize that those people who had spoken up to warn him earlier were simply harboring ill intentions. When they saw so many disgusting scorpions lying on both sides of the light bridge, Chu Ling and Bai Yanran were so frightened that they almost screamed. They hurriedly grabbed Yi Fei's arms from both sides and said, "These scorpions are so disgusting. They won't charge in, will they?" "I don't think so. Grandfather told me that the test of the light bridge is the simplest in the Great Void, but it is also the most dangerous. The simple thing is that these monsters can only extend a part of themselves and cannot completely break through the blockade of the light bridge. This greatly limits their abilities. The dangerous thing is that there are too many martial art practitioners on the light bridge. If they are crowded together, they will become easy targets for these monsters. Therefore, we must rush to the other side of the light bridge within 2 hours. Otherwise, the light bridge will completely lose its protection," Ji Feng said in a low voice. Roar. Following his words, a beast claw suddenly appeared and smashed a huge hole in another light bridge. A few young cultivators who were leaning against each other did not understand what was going on before their bodies were grabbed by the beast claw and forcefully dragged out of the light bridge. Only the faint sound of chewing could be heard in the darkness. Yi Fei suddenly felt a chill down his spine. He knew that if he stayed where he was, he would be waiting for death. He immediately exchanged glances with Di Fan and Bai Shizhong. "Bai Shizhong, you take care of your sister. Di Fan, you take care of Chu Ling. I will lead the way." Due to their familiarity with each other, Yi Fei and the others quickly formed a small alliance in the face of danger. Other than Bai Yanran and Chu Ling, who were not used to such a bloody test, everyone moved as fast as they could. At this moment, Yi Fei directly activated his ancient god golden body. He opened up a protective light ball that resembled a purple tai chi and took the lead to rush to the front of the light bridge. Roar! Chapter 2706. Roar! Roar! Hearing the roar, the terrifying beast claw was already grabbing towards Yi Fei. Yi Fei had seen with his own eyes how these vicious beasts of the Great Void devoured warriors. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Fortunately, he had the spatial mystique. He used it almost instinctively and disappeared from where he stood. The beast claw didn't hit Yi Fei. Instead, it smashed the brains of a young man in green who was charging from behind Yi Fei. The young man was smashed into meat paste on the ground. Yi Fei felt as if he had just escaped death. Although the battle just now was short and the vicious beasts only had one beast claw that could reach into the light bridge from the great void, Yi Fei was shocked to discover that it was a quasi-emperor vicious beasts of the Renzu Paramount Realm. What was the Paramount Realm? It was only one step away from the Emperor of the Ancients. This was the Paramount Realm of the Renzu Paramount Realm. Outside the light bridge, there were many vicious beasts of the Great Void. Yi Fei finally understood how dangerous the Great Void was. If it weren't for the sanctuary sects that opened this light bridge that could temporarily block the vicious beasts, even Renzu Paramount Realm cultivators would have died if they came in, let alone monarchs like them. Kill! Don't stop me. I'll kill anyone who dares to block my way. Finally, some people couldn't bear the fear of being treated as prey. They started to charge forward crazily, trying to kill their way out of the crowd. Everyone who tried to stop them became their target. The crowd instantly became chaotic. Yi Fei sighed. The vicious beasts were never the most dangerous things, but the human heart. No. If he allowed this situation to continue, he would definitely be involved in this chaotic battle. Therefore, Yi Fei didn't hold back. Instead, he sped up and rushed to the front to scout the way. Di Fan and Bai Shizhong also unleashed their strongest powers to block the poisonous hooks of the giant scorpions around them. Wu Yu and Fu Renjie, the four of them, formed a circle, protecting Bai Yanran and Chu Ling in the middle. As for Ji Feng, he had his family Jiwang's companions to protect him. There was no need to worry about the threat of the venomous scorpions. Of course, the most dangerous one was still Yi Fei. After all, he was at the very front and was in charge of scouting the way. Naturally, he attracted the attention of many vicious beasts. Just as Yi Fei dodged the beast claw, a loud buzzing sound came from outside the light bridge. Yi Fei subconsciously used his sword light to illuminate the void outside. He immediately felt his scalp tingle. The source of the sound was actually a strange black beetle. Each of them was the size of a water buffalo. Although the restrictions of the light bridge prevented these beetles from rushing in completely, they could still spit out a terrifying flame from their mouths. This flame immediately formed countless pillars of flame that emerged from the corroded holes of the light bridge. It also caused the entire light bridge to be filled with intense flames in an instant, causing even more cultivators to scream in fear. Yi Fei's face was also a little pale. This trip to the Great Void was much more dangerous than he had imagined. If they did not rush over quickly, it was very likely that some of them would die here. We can't hold on any longer. These flames can corrode our dark force. Suddenly, a young man from the family Jiwang screamed. His face was unfortunately hit by the flames. The dark force protecting his body instantly disintegrated. His entire face was burned with blisters. After a few screams, he fell to the ground and was burned to ashes. This caused Wu Yu and the others to be distressed. No. Everyone who decided to participate in this trip to the Great Void was already prepared to die in battle. Although this person's death was distressing, it also stimulated everyone's desire to live. Even Chu Ling and Bai Yanran overcame their initial discomfort and joined the battle. Moreover, in the face of the attacks from the vicious beasts of the Great Void, the cultivators on the light bridge had thought of a way to deal with them. For example, the princes of the ancient countries who controlled the light bridge had united many people and formed a tight military formation. They gathered everyone's strength and pushed forward continuously. Although there were many people who were injured in the process, none of them died. Yi Fei's eyes lit up immediately. Why didn't I think of this? If we are alone, we may be scattered. However, if we form a military formation, we can gather our strength and fight against these vicious beasts. Yi Fei, your thinking is too simple. To form a military formation, we need at least a team of 100 people. However, there are less than 30 of us. How can we form a military formation? Ji Feng's words caused many young men from the family Jiwang to turn pale. The family Jiwang also had a military formation. However, it required the cooperation of several ancient clans to form a military formation. Currently, we are unable to form a military formation at all. Di Fan and Fu Renjie shook their heads as well. On the other hand, Chu Ling, who was standing in the middle, suddenly thought of something. She suggested weakly, "Why don't I get the little light dragon to grow bigger? We can all fly on its back." However, Wu Yu shook his head. "No, there are so many of us. Even if the little light dragon grows up, it may not be able to stand on all of us, let alone the little light dragon. Speaking of growing bigger, I have an idea." Since they were unable to form a military formation to resist the attacks of the vicious beasts of the Great Void, Yi Fei quickly thought of an idea that was not really an idea. He directly grabbed the dragon turtle that was hiding in the beast mark space. "Blackie, quickly grow bigger. If we charge over, we will have more food later." Roar. Upon hearing the words, "more food," the dragon turtle, whose legs were originally weak, immediately grew to the size of a small mountain. The light dragon and the green dragon were dumbstruck. Obviously, they did not expect this black fatty to have such an advantage when it was greedy for food. When it transformed, it could grow even bigger. At this moment, the dragon turtle's back was enough to carry more than 10 people. Together with the enlarged little light dragon and the little emerald dragon, it was just enough to carry everyone. While Yi Fei, Ji Feng, Di Fan, and Bai Shizhong were free to fight the great void vicious beasts around them. Wu Yu, Fu Renjie, and the rest stood on the dragon turtle's back and used various supernatural powers from afar to resist the oncoming flames. Although this was not a military formation, when the 3 dragons gathered together, they were like 3 moving fortresses that charged forward with large steps. No. In the military formation in the distance, a certain prince of an ancient country suddenly had a cold look in his eyes. "This ye fellow is rather quick-witted. However, now is not the time to act. Pass down the order to speed up and charge out of this light bridge as soon as possible." Boom. After being provoked by Yi Fei, the princes of the ancient countries no longer concealed themselves. Hundreds of people formed a military formation that suddenly moved. It was as if they could topple mountains and overturn seas. They ignored all obstacles and directly pushed towards the end of the light bridge. It was only now that the cultivators from the smaller factions understood why there were so many young experts who formed all sorts of alliances before entering the Great Void. They even crossed the limits of the sections. But it was too late for them to understand now. Chapter 2707. Yi Fei did not know how many people would be able to carve out a bloody path and reach the end of the light bridge in the allotted time. Even the warriors who were struggling did not know. 2 hours passed quickly. Finally, under the continuous assault of the 3 fortresses formed by the dragon turtle, the little light dragon, and the little emerald dragon, Yi Fei and the others managed to cross the terrifying light bridge in 2 hours. Looking back, there were still countless warriors who were desperately trying to cross the light bridge. Unfortunately, the light bridge had a time limit. Once the time limit was up, the entire light bridge instantly disintegrated and lost all light. The warriors who did not manage to cross the light bridge all let out cries of despair as they fell into the endless darkness. As for how many people would be able to escape from the vicious beasts of the Great Void and return to the Great Void City in the end, no one knew. The people who had crossed the light bridge did not know either. In the endless darkness of the Great Void, there were 2 pairs of cold eyes looking indifferently at the people who were struggling in the darkness. "With so much blood as bait, I don't believe that the ancient god's corpse spirit will be able to resist such temptation. But senior brother, aren't we being a little too cruel?" "Cruel. As long as we can capture that corpse spirit, even if 99% of the people who entered the Great Void die, it will be worth it." In the void, a cold voice sounded, but his eyes were fixed on all the figures who had fallen into the light bridge. Especially his eyes, which did not seem to belong to a human. They could actually see very far away, just like the vicious beasts of the great void. Of course, all of this was completely unknown to the thousands of young prodigies who had already crossed the light bridge. At this moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on the 3 void arenas at the end of the light bridge. There were 3 stone tablets erected on the arenas. They were the bronze door, the silver door, and the golden door. A young man from a family Jiwang pointed to the 3 arenas and said, young masters, this is the first test of the sanctuary sect. By defeating the seals of the experts on the different arenas, we will be able to open different trial doors. Once we succeed, we will be able to obtain great benefit. This young man was from the family Jiwang, and he was in charge of researching the Great Void. It could be said that he had a deep understanding of the tests of the Great Void. He first looked at Ji Feng and suggested, young master, with your strength, you can try to enter the silver door. As for the golden door, it's specially prepared for peerless geniuses. It's best if we don't touch it. Upon hearing this, Yi Fei's gaze subconsciously turned towards the resplendent golden arena. Then, he sensed that there seemed to be some kind of terrifying formation operating within the void of the arena. It made him feel as if vicious beasts were hibernating, and even his breathing became sluggish. Di Fan let out a muffled groan. Just now, he had used his consciousness to probe the arena. In the end, not only was his consciousness engulfed, but he also suffered from a vicious gaze. Blood oozed out from the corner of his mouth. The existence of the golden arena is the ancient emperor-level vicious beasts. What? Ancient emperor level? The test of the sanctuary sect is indeed insane. Wu Yu and the rest were shocked. They immediately dismissed the idea of entering the golden arena. Instead, they walked towards the silver arena and attempted to challenge it. The first one to walk up was not Yi Fei, but Fu Renjie. He had just returned from cultivating in the demon continent. Although he was not as strong as Di Fan, his combat strength was also terrifying. All of you back off. I'll scout ahead. Roar. Activating the demon-breeding heavenly embryo, Fu Renjie had already turned into a demonic dragon. He raised his head and roared as he charged into the arena. Immediately, a deafening roar came from the silver arena. Similarly, a vermilion bird with black flames appeared on the arena. It let out a venomous shriek at Fu Renjie. Its wings were spread open like 2 demonic blades that could slay dragons. They slashed towards Fu Renjie in a frenzy. Yi Fei was shocked. He was shocked to discover that this vermilion bird with a dark aura was actually the formation spirit of the silver arena. In other words, as long as the formation was not destroyed, this dark vermilion bird would definitely not die. This also made the vermilion bird's attacks unbridled. It did not fear death at all. Young master, all of you must be careful. The vicious beasts on these arenas are all vicious beasts from the Great Void, captured by the sects of the Holy Region. They were killed when they were alive, and after they died, they were refined into formation spirits. Their hearts are filled with intense resentment towards us humans. Once they step into the arena, they will either kill the formation spirit to pass, or die on the arena and be devoured by the formation spirit. This youth from the family Jiwang, who was familiar with the Great Void, had a solemn expression. Furthermore, the silver doors can accommodate 1,000 warriors at a time. The types of formation spirits that challenge at the same time will not be repeated. Therefore, I am unable to determine what kind of formation spirit you will encounter when you go up. Boom. Before he could finish speaking, Yi Fei had already seen a few young prodigies pressing their hands on the stone steels. Their figures immediately disappeared from their original positions. Above the void, 5 silver arenas appeared. Above them, 5 different types of vicious beasts of the Great Void appeared at the same time. The only similarity was that their expressions were filled with intense resentment and boiling murderous intent. One of the warriors had just rushed up not long before he was torn to shreds and devoured by the formation spirit of the vicious beast. Chu Ling and Bai Yanran's faces turned pale when they saw this. Wu Yu shook his head and said, "This silver arena is too perverse. I'd better choose the bronze arena, which is the least difficult." Due to the difficulty of the bronze arena, many warriors who had crossed the light bridge pressed their hands on the stone steels of the bronze doors. As a result, hundreds of bronze arenas appeared out of nowhere in the void. The furious roars of hundreds of vicious beasts could be heard from the arenas. Many warriors who heard this felt their blood boil. A formless terror lingered around them. Wu Yu's calves trembled. He immediately quickened his pace, and was about to walk towards the stone steels of the bronze doors. However, before Wu Yu could walk over, suddenly, someone from the crowd attacked Wu Yu continuously. However, Wu Yu was very vigilant. In the face of this sudden sneak attack, he would rather fall to the ground and frantically roll around to avoid it than give his opponent a chance to kill him. Wu Yu, Yi Fei Di Fan and the others were all shocked. Although Yi Fei had a grudge against Lu Mohan and was prepared for the possibility of being plotted against in the Great Void, he did not expect that the first person to be plotted against was not him, but the weakest Wu Yu. A murderous intent suddenly flashed across Yi Fei's body. Suddenly, he transformed into a terrifying ray of blood sword light and suddenly charged towards the few people who were trying to attack him. Suddenly, a cold command came from the crowd. "You can't even protect yourself. Do you still want to save others?" Boom. Boom. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.